What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
4BD. Chapter 81 Celestial Dragons, is it that scary? Please order. Advertisement. The man hockey leaked sideways, and in just an instant, everyone on the joy field fainted to death. What was even more frightening was the fact that the great kings of the dark world had their bones shattered, and they were crushed to death, and there was no room for resistance. Rao is Stussy, who is knowledgeable and well informed. She is also a strong woman, and she can't help but tremble at this time. Her face, which was originally pure and charming, became a little pale. She used to be ever-changing, always turning her big eyes that didn't know what a ghost idea, but at this time she was also full of panic. You know, even if she was invited by the four emperors to be a guest, she never showed such a gaff and fearful expression on the sight of the four emperors. It is the man in front of him that makes Stussy feel even more terrifying than four emperors. With his plain and deep pitch black eyes, he killed several great dark world kings in silence, without even frowning his brows. His indifferent tone made Stussy completely unable to see through, and his heart seemed to be hanging on the edge of a cliff. The empty 663 swayed without bottom. I don't know how long it has been before Stussy barely managed to control his mood. She wanted to stand up from Dover's arms, but found that she was extremely powerless at this time because of her fearful body, and she didn't even have the strength to stand up. Stussy only continued to lie in Dover's arms and smiled strongly. Master Joker, your Kamui is really getting more and more amazing, even if it is the four emperors of Kunlun New World, it's nothing more than that. Dover looked at the calm expression of the woman in his arms faintly, and he felt more and more that Stussy was a usable woman. A person who can remain calm at this time can be said to be a spy who is born to penetrate the enemy, and a manager who collects all intelligence in the dark world. However, no matter how Stussy is available, the premise must be completely loyal to himself. Otherwise, it is just the government's eagle dog. Stussy was a little furry in Dover's gaze. She felt like she couldn't hide herself from a man's eyes. This kind of seeing through the eyes of others at a glance, in the past, was usually used by Stussy to look at others. After all, as the intelligence queen of the dark world, she knows human psychology very well. And this time, she not only couldn't see through the man's psychology, but for the first time, she felt that she was seen through. Stussy felt increasingly unfathomable that Dover was a terrible man she had never seen before. She continued more cautiously. Master Joker, you are looking for me this time, do you have any orders? Everyone on the happy field fainted, and several dark world kings were crushed to death, but he was alive and well. Stussy didn't think that Joker was pitying and cherishing Jade, and he was in love with his own beauty. With the strength and power of this man, what do you want? Advertisement. Although she was a first-class beauty, and made several great dark world kings jealous, but for this man, Stussy couldn't even guarantee that she would be able to enter the other's eyes. Therefore, Stussy guessed that when Joker came this time, something must be looking for her. Since Stussy is so smart and witty, Dover also made it clear. I want you, Stussy. What? Stussy was taken aback for a moment. If someone else says this, Stussy must think that that person is deliberately belittle himself with words. But the man in front of him is impossible, and it must have other deeper meanings. Stussy thought for a while, and smiled more reluctantly. Master Joker, do you want my happy street? To tell you the truth, even I can't decide where it belongs. It belongs to the forces behind me. When Stussy finished speaking, he stared at the man's expression. Her background is very deep and mysterious. This is something everyone in the dark world knows. Stussy herself was unable to resist Dover, so she wanted to use the unknown background behind it to make the man a little hesitant. Unexpectedly, the man laughed. The laughter seemed to come from the endless glacier, which made Stussy suddenly feel a bit cold, and the trembling of her body increased. Buddha Xiaohehe, the forces behind. Stussy, it seems that you didn't understand what I meant just now. Dover's eyes sparkled with a deep light that shocked Stussy. What I want is not just a happy street, but also the people behind you. You. This sentence entered Stussy's ears, like an endless thunder in her mind. The panic in Stussy's pupils was uncontrollable in an instant, expanding infinitely. She stared blankly at the man in front of her. Does he know who is behind him? Even if his strength is terrifying, he is only a Shichibukai in the end. In fact, he, like Stussy himself, is, to some extent, controlled by those behind him. However, he just said that he wants those people behind him. Stussy's throat is dry, and he can't hold his barely smile. You were joking just now. Do you know who I am? Do you know, who are the people behind me? Ha ha ha. Dover chuckled lightly, and looked at the petite and exquisite woman in his arms playfully. Advertisement. Celestial dragons, is it that scary? A simple sentence made Stussy completely confused. Stussy already understands that Joker not only knows her true identity, but also knows the people behind her well. But even so, this man actually said, are those people so terrible? This simply tears Stussy's worldview. As we all know, Celestial Dragons is the founder of today's world and the supreme noble. The supreme ruler of their world government, all countries in the world, must provide heavenly gold to serve them. And once something goes wrong with the Celestial Dragons, immediately, Marine Admiral, the government's highest combat force, will be dispatched. It can be said that if celestial dragons are not terrible in this world, then no one will be terrible. Stussy's mind was in chaos at this time. The scope of this man's instrumentalities really made her incalculable, and even celestial dragons didn't pay attention to it. This man's hockey shocked Stussy's mind, and couldn't help but give birth to such absurd thoughts as, even if he doesn't put celestial dragons in his eyes, it's normal. In short, Stussy, who has always been shrewd and smart, talked and laughed freely in front of the kings of the dark world, and even the 4 emperors, was speechless at this moment. She didn't know what to say or do. Is it a panic rejection? Or run away immediately? After doing that, I am afraid that in the next second, it will be similar to the few great dark world kings who have turned into blood and mud. Stussy can undoubtedly affirm that once he shook his head, this man would never give up his own life. She has no choice but to die for celestial dragons. But thinking of those disgusting and ugly celestial dragons, Stussy couldn't help but gag. Compared with the man in front of him, the so-called celestial dragons is indeed like a pile of shit. Stussy has never been truly loyal to celestial dragons, just taking pictures of the other side's terrifying identity, and has never dared to give birth to the idea of betrayal. And now, an opportunity lay in front of her. For a long time, it seemed that the sky was already dark. The pale color on Stussy's face gradually faded, and her body no longer trembles. As always, the pure and charming face merged together, regaining its brilliance and attractiveness. Stussy leaned softly on Dover's broad, solid chest, and said with a greasy voice. From now on, I will really put my life on you, Lord Joker. Chapter 82 The Roswald family enters the net, the Empress Boya, Hancock. Advertisement. Holy Land, Mariajoy, an ultimate luxury ship sailing out of Mariajoy port. Seeing the front of the luxurious ship, whether it is marine warships or ordinary people's boats, they can't hide far away. Because they didn't want to be bombarded by artillery inexplicably, and were finally buried in the belly of a sea beast. Naturally, only the ships of celestial dragons dare to take such unscrupulous shots against marine and civilians without any consequences. This luxurious ship is impressively the ship of the celestial dragons Roswald family. At this time, on the deck of a luxury ship, 3 celestial dragons wearing bubble caps are talking. In the rest of the ship, there are not many guards. There is no marine escort around the big ship. Roswald frowned and looked around. Without heavy guards, celestial dragons, who rarely came out, felt a little unsafe. Charos, that thing is really so important, can't anyone see it? I think Sengoku should send some marine admiral to protect us. Rosvard's son, Charith with 2 nasal mucus, kept shaking his head and said. No way, no way. If we let Marine know about this, other celestial dragons will also know that the benefits we will get by then will be greatly reduced by 11, father. Roswald frowned deeper, but, just about to say it again, his daughter, Shalulia with a face of disdain, said. My father, are you too careful? Even if you are not in Mariajoy, where are the rubbish bugs from the outside world, where can you dare to attack the descendants of our creators? Let's talk. Shalulia's face suddenly showed a touch of unconcealed yearning and longing. If you want to live forever, a little adventure is worth it, father. Hearing the words, immortality, was mentioned by his daughter, Roswald couldn't help showing excitement and madness in his eyes, and his worries were completely forgotten by him. For their supreme celestial dragons, regardless of wealth, women, status, slaves and other things that ordinary people would not dare to ask for, they have as many as they want. And the only thing that scares celestial dragons is aging, that is death. Therefore, when he heard Charos say that an immortal drug was found somewhere, the Rosvard family immediately set off from Mariajoy without stopping. Except for the CP0 member on the side, no one knows about this. Rob Lucci, what you said about the elixir of life, are you sure it's true? On the deck, the CP0 member was Rob Lucci and Khalifa. With an extremely humble expression on Lucci's face, he bowed and said, it's absolutely true, Lord Rosvard. Your son, St. Charles has already eaten a little of that thing. That's it. At the mention of that, Charles Roth felt anxious as if he had committed epilepsy. Advertisement. He was breathing fast, licking his lips desperately, as if still reminiscing the smell of the thing, almost madly said. Father, that thing definitely comes from heaven. I feel like I have only eaten a little and I will live for decades. I can't bear it anymore. Charles Rose groan yelled at the sweaty crew members. You inferior people, hurry up and drive the boat to me. The crew dared to be angry but didn't dare to speak, and used all their energy to suckle. Zalulia on the side felt extremely jealous that Charos had already eaten the food. Huh, damn it, you got it first. But that's okay, I heard that Stussy also found something to take, but it's all mine. Did you say so, Khalifa? Khalifa, dressed in a black silk net dress, quickly said yes. However, when Khalifa lowered his head, he glanced at Rob Lucci, and a cold sneer flashed in his eyes. These ignorant, arrogant and ugly celestial dragons are just whimsical, but they don't know that they have fallen into the clutches of Lord Dover. Yes, the so-called elixir is simply fake. What Charith had eaten was actually a poison that Dover ordered Guy to create, which was hallucinogenic and addictive. After eating the idiot, Charos imagined that he would be immortal, so he regarded the poison as the elixir of life. Naturally, Lucci and Khalifa followed the boat along the way. Together with the secret CP0 spy Stussy who was subdued by Dover, they also wrote to say that they had found the elixir, and Charles Roth was completely convinced. This time, Chal Ross encouraged Rosvard and Zalulia to get more elixir. New World. Somewhere in the calm sea. A pirate ship with a whole body made of mahogany and 2 snake-shaped bows floating in the sea. The logo on the sail of the pirate ship turned out to be the Pirates of the Nine Snakes, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. On the boat of the 9 snakes and pirates, the arrogant woman wearing a red cheongsam, with a pair of long and round legs, an attractive curve and an exaggerated waist, a perfect exquisite jade face, and a black and beautiful long hair, does not own the world. The empress with the title of First Beauty, Boya and Hancock. The female emperor put one hand on her slender and condensed waist, holding her head high and scanning the surrounding sea. She exuded an ultimate pride and icy temperament. Under the influence of this temperament, even the fishes under the sea were far away. It seems that the extremely beautiful woman on board is the most terrifying species in the world. My sister, New World is indeed rich in resources, this time our harvest is not small. Beside, a tall woman with green hair, snake-shaped, approached. It was the sister of the Empress, Sandersonia. Because of its location in the Calm Belt, the daughter country managed by the Empress could not be approached by ordinary people at all, resulting in an extreme shortage of certain resources. Therefore, the Empress will come out every once in a while to collect resources and bring them back to China. But this time, the Empress ran directly to New World, which was rare in the past. However, even in the chaotic New World with large pirates everywhere, there are very few people who dare to provoke the Shichibukai, the superpowered Empress. Along the way, the 9 snakes and pirates hardly encountered any trouble. Advertisement. The harvest from this trip is naturally even more fruitful. Although the Empress looked indifferent and cold, she nodded to Sandersonia's words. When she was about to speak, her gaze suddenly condensed, and she noticed that a marine warship was approaching on the sea level in the distance. Hancock frowned with cold brows. Although she is Shichibukai, because of her childhood experience, she doesn't have the slightest affection for the government and marine. I saw Hancock sneered, stretched out a slender jade finger, pointed at the marine warship approaching them, and said coldly and arrogantly. The people from Marine are listening to the concubine. This is the concubine's ship, the sea that will pass through. You leave here quickly. The people on the 9 snake pirates ship immediately looked at the warship ahead with a sneer. According to the past practice, as long as the Empress said this sentence, even if the person on the warship is a Marine vice admiral, he will immediately give way to 667. Because the Empress is the most beautiful person in the world. Everyone will be involuntarily and deeply obsessed with Lady Empress, no matter how rude the Lady Empress asks, they can't refuse it. But, it happened that made everyone in the 9 snakes and pirates fall apart. The warship, instead of turning around and leaving, moved closer. It was already less than 5 meters away from their 9 snakes and pirates. Hancock was also a little surprised, but the sneer on his face became even worse. However, at this moment, from the warship, there was a voice that surprised Hancock, too. Buddha Xiaofo, Hancock, I didn't expect to meet you here. On the deck of the warship, a tall, handsome and evil figure slowly appeared. The man has blonde hair and dark eyes. The moment they saw this person, everyone in the 9 snakes and pirates' faces solidified. Even the Empress Boya. Hancock also revealed a trace of extreme accident and rare solemnity. Because the person who appeared on the deck of the warship was actually Heavenly Yaksha, Donquixote, Doflamingo, one of Shichibukai with her. The person here is just about to arrest Dover of the Roswald family. It's just that Dover didn't expect that on the way, he would encounter Hancock and his party who were hunting at sea. Thinking of Hancock's childhood experience, Dover's mouth couldn't help but evoke a deep and evil arc, and then said. Hancock, I advise you to leave this sea as soon as possible. Because I will. There may be some people who remind you of nightmares. Chapter 83 Hancock's Nightmare, Celestial Dragons Treated as Prey. Please order. Advertisement. Recalling the nightmare, Hancock was confused by Dover's words, so the beautiful pair of willow eyebrows got closer together. To be honest, she didn't understand the man in front of her. She just met this man at the first Shichibukai meeting. At that time, Hancock had no good impressions of this Shichibukai and impermanent man. And this time, Hancock felt that Dover was more unfathomable than before. What's more surprising is that Dover's temperament seems to have undergone some indescribable change. In short, this change made Hancock less annoying than before, but it was just not annoying. Hancock still had a cold face. Doflamingo, what do you mean? Dover smiled faintly, but didn't say anything. He was never interested in explaining anything to others, let alone repeating the words a second time. Seeing the man in front of him, Hancock ignored himself and bit his ruddy lips in annoyance. She is the #1 beauty in the world. Even if this man is extremely extraordinary, he can resist her beauty, but he can't ignore her like this, right? At this time, another person walked out of the warship. She wears a white coat. Although her body is not as long and perfect as Hancock, she is also wrapped in pink dress with exquisite bumps and curves. She is also a first-class beauty. This woman is the queen of the pleasure district, Stussy in Dover. This warship is naturally Stussy's handwriting. As soon as Stussy showed up, he took a closer look at Hancock, who is known as the world's #1 beauty, and then giggled. Hancock recognized Stussy. After all, the latter's name, Queen of the Pleasure District, is also quite famous in the underground world. What are you laughing at? Hancock said coldly. Stussy lightly covered Sakura's little mouth, with a pair of wonderful eyes, glanced at the stalwart man beside him, and said to Hancock. Sister, don't be angry. Master Joker is like this, even if you are a beauty like a elder sister, he will ignore it. Who is your sister? Hancock was taken to his heart by Stussy's words, and he couldn't help but feel annoyed. Just now, I actually felt a little angry because a man ignored him. Stussy smiled more and more. Although her strength may not be as good as Hancock, she is not as good as Stussy when it comes to grasping people's hearts. Hancock glared at Stussy, but soon she calmed down. She is a lofty, indifferent and arrogant empress, how can a man and a woman make her gaff? Hancock held his head high, standing there like a proud white swan. And her ship didn't go further, and since Dover told her to leave as soon as possible, she just didn't leave. She wanted to see, who exactly was that man talking about that would remind her of the so-called nightmare. For a while, the atmosphere on the court was a little weird. The people on the boat of the 9 snakes and pirates did not dare to breathe, they did not dare to touch the mold of the female emperor. At the same time, the man on the opposite warship was not something they could provoke. Only Stussy's eyes wandered, constantly looking at Dover and Hancock, not knowing what he was thinking. Advertisement. Since helping Dover deceive the Roswald family, Stussy has never retreated. She can only rely on Dover for everything she has now. After understanding this, Stussy was relieved on the contrary, and returned to the exquisite mind of the past. Hancock naturally noticed Stussy's gaze. Although she was still indifferent on the surface, she was quite embarrassed in her heart. Because, Stussy's eyes were clearly full of the ambiguity of men and women, making him feel like he really had something to do with that man. Shameless woman, Hancock thought angrily. Queen of the Pleasure District, what it represents, is not so beautiful in itself. However, this weird atmosphere on the court did not last long before it was broken by a loud whistle. Hey, you inferior people, get out of here. A few kilometers away, a luxurious ship was approaching in the direction of Dover and Hancock. On the luxury ship, an ugly man with a bubble hood and 2 lines of snot was shouting into the horn. Illustration. Hancock couldn't bear it anymore, and the one who ignores herself, forget it, someone who didn't know where she came from, how dare to call her an inferior person. Really life and death. Hancock's beautiful eyes flashed with cold light, and he looked at where the sound came from, and when he was about to make the other person look good, J-Ran discovered the other person's attire. The original beautiful jade face turned pale in an instant. Sister. Next to them, Sandersonia and Marigold noticed that Hancock's face suddenly changed, and they quickly reached out to help. Immediately afterwards, they were even more shocked to find that the sister's body was trembling slightly. How can this be? You must know that since the elder sister became the emperor of the Queen's country, became the 7 warlords of the sea and awakened conquerors hockey, there was nothing more to make the elder sister so gaff. Even if it is Doflamingo, who is also Shichibukai with my sister was still calm just now. But now, Sandersonia and Marigold suddenly thought of the nightmare that Dover said earlier, as if thinking of something, their pupils could not help but dilate sharply. They slowly turned their heads in disbelief and looked in the same direction as Hancock, and their bodies instantly became frozen like Hancock. They finally understood what Dover said about the nightmare. That is indeed the nightmare of the older sister and their 3 sisters, a nightmare that will never be forgotten. That is, once became a slave to celestial dragons. At a very young age, the 3 Hancock sisters were captured by celestial dragons and became slaves. Although they were lucky, they did not suffer much, and they were rescued by the Murloc hero Tiger shortly after. But since then, deep in their hearts, there has been a wound that can never be closed. And, the hoof of the heavenly dragon that was branded on its back and represents a lifetime of shame. Dover glanced at Hancock, whose face was pale. He was indeed a celestial being, and he was not inferior to the other girls around him. Especially, the cold and arrogant temperament of Hancock who belonged to the real empress was even more so that none of the women around Dover possessed it. Even Viola, who has been a queen for some time, is far inferior to Hancock in this respect. However, since this woman didn't follow his advice just now, it was her own misfortune to run into his hunting prey. Advertisement. Dover stopped looking at Hancock, but there was a slight sneer at the corner of his mouth. Now that the prey is here, it's time for him, the hunter, to pick up his shotgun, right? The luxurious ship is getting closer. Seeing the 2 boats in front of him, Charth didn't even move as if he hadn't heard his command. He threw the horns off the horn in anger, and said viciously to Rob Lucci on the side. Quote. Lucci, shoot me and kill them these inferior people. Shah Lulia also said disdainfully. Dare to stand in front of the descendants of the Creator, this is an inexcusable evil. As for Roswald, he didn't even lift his eyelids. In their celestial dragon's eyes, the life and death of ordinary people is no different from the death of an ant. Yes, St. Charles, Cherulia Palace. Lucci and Khalifa agreed at the same time, and the 2 looked at each other, and the colors flashed in their eyes at the same time. The beast in Lucci's heart was even more awakened, and he licked his lips bloodthirsty. Finally, I can finally start the celestial dragons, who claim to be the creator all day long. This kind of stimulation is almost 100 times stronger than those ordinary people killed by Lucci before, 1,000 times stronger. Shave. Finger pistol. As soon as Lucci moved, he was so fast that he could not see clearly, and in the blink of an eye, he solved all the guards and crew on the luxurious ship Wang Jiao. Lucci, you be D, what are you doing? Shah Lulia noticed Lucci's behavior and questioned Lucci angrily. Lucci's bloodthirsty eyes glanced at Zalulia, which made the latter step back subconsciously with horror. Master Cherulia Palace, you have to be careful. Khalifa smiled, and stepped forward to lift Shah Lulia's back. Shah Lulia slowed down, then pointed at Lucci, gritted her teeth and said. Khalifa, kill this inferior servant for this palace. Kako, that won't work, Master Zaluria Palace. Khalifa licked her bright red lips and said with a mocking smile. I just asked you to be careful, because I was afraid that you would accidentally fall to death. I can't explain it to Master Dover. What? Shah Lulia was completely stunned, and her mind went blank for a while. Illustration. As for Rosbard and Charos, they hadn't even had time to react to what happened behind them. At this time, Rob Lucci and Khalifa, at the same time on the front of the warship, the figure of the tall and stalwart man that gradually appeared, knelt down and said respectfully. My lord, the prey you want is brought to you. Chapter 84 Hancock is shocked, a man like a god. Advertisement. What happened on the luxury ship was so swift and unexpected that people were caught off guard. Just now, when Hancock saw the ship of celestial dragons, the humiliation and anger in his heart came to his heart. As Dover said earlier, that experience was indeed her nightmare. Her usual indifference and arrogance, nobleness and unreasonableness, all disappeared in the face of the celestial dragons she hated to the bone. But even though the hatred in his heart was like a monstrous ocean wave, Hancock just squeezed his fist tightly for a moment, and his face trembled lightly, without taking any action. Because she knows that once she takes action against celestial dragons, the so-called Shichibukai identity will be lost, and the 9 snake pirates in the daughter country will face the highest combat power of Marine from now on. Although Hancock showed disdain for the people of the daughter country on weekdays, it was her hometown after all, and she had to hesitate. But the hatred for celestial dragons is also biting her heart. Just when Hancock didn't know whether to fight to the death, kill those celestial dragons, or continue to endure the humiliation and get out of the way, the situation before him changed drastically. Master Dover, the prey you want is brought to you. When Hancock heard that the member of CP0 beside celestial dragons suddenly kneeled at the man on the warship and said this, she was completely stunned. Hunting measures. Does the CP0 person refer to celestial dragons? Even if you have always been arrogant, you can't help but feel a little absurd at this time. Some people actually regard the world's noble celestial dragons as prey. Hancock turned his beautiful eyes almost subconsciously and looked at the man on the warship that she couldn't see through. With a wicked smile on the man's face, he paced slowly, 667 walked to the edge of the warship deck, jokingly glanced at the 3 celestial dragons on the opposite side, and then said to the 2 CP0 members. Get up, thank you for your hard work. The 2 CP0 members immediately trembled with excitement, and their expressions became more religious. At this time, Rosbard and Charles Rose also reacted to something wrong. Charles Rose turned his head and flicked 2 noses, and stared at Rob Lucci angrily. What are you doing, Lucci? Where is my elixir? Rosbard is more sophisticated than his son Charos, he vaguely understands that he seems to have fallen into a trap, and at the same time he is flustered, he is more angry. But the descendant of the creator, the celestial dragons aloft. Some mere inferior people actually set him off. Moreover, that B********* D Lucci dare to call him a prey. It's going to be the opposite. Rosbard's face was so angry that he turned purple. He trembled and raised his arms, pointing at the man who dared to look down on him on the opposite side. Everyone in the thief group. You. Roswald was so annoyed that he could hardly speak. You wait for this saint. This saint will tell the B******** D Sengoku to come over in person, and this saint wants you to become slaves forever. The gnashing, sharp voice is enough to show that the anger in the heart of the speaker has reached the extreme. Especially, this is still from the mouth of a celestial dragons, I am afraid that any people will be unable to stop the chills and even the body trembling when they hear it. Advertisement. Shah Lulia had just been hung up by Khalifa's words, when she was reminded by her father's voice. She has always been a noble girl standing in the clouds, when has she suffered such humiliation? Zaluria made a sharper noise than her father, and yelled viciously. Go to Martial Marine Sengoku. I want these inferior people to die and be torn apart by sea beasts. The hysteria of the 2 celestial dragons made everyone in the 9 snakes and pirates extremely pale. Even Hancock felt tight. At this moment, even if she didn't attack celestial dragons, she couldn't get rid of it. Also, the Marine Marshal who celestial dragons clamored to call over, the old man standing at the top of Marine, even Hancock, was also quite jealous. But unexpectedly, Hancock did not choose to leave this place of right and wrong immediately. Instead, a pair of beautiful eyes still stared at the man opposite. Hancock always feels that since this man is bold and takes celestial dragons as his prey, it is absolutely impossible to miss this level. Sure enough, Hancock saw the man's mouth, the arc of evil sneers, and it widened. His gaze was high, as if he looked at celestial dragons and just looked at ordinary ants. This makes Hancock feel very incredible. Celestial dragons are nobles in the world, what kind of people can they also be regarded as ants? It is estimated that in this whole world, only the man she is staring at this time can do. Fortunately, Hancock still thinks that the man's look at celestial dragons is just as natural as when she makes some unreasonable requests to other people. This is really weird. Dover looked down at the 3 celestial dragons who were hysterical and didn't understand what they were in at this time. There was a trance from hell laughter in his throat. Shao shao ha ha ha, it's really ugly, celestial dragons. However, you seem to be thinking one thing wrong. At the moment you came out of Mariajoy, your life and death, your actions, can no longer be controlled by you. In the next moment, a huge power rose from Dover. The situation is stagnant at this moment. The sea seemed to freeze at this moment. A huge pressure like a mountain appeared in the hearts of everyone present out of thin air. This conqueror's owned by the Empress. Because everyone in the daughter country cultivates hockey, everyone in the Nine Snakes and Pirates is very familiar with hockey. And Conquerors is just a prelude, and the next scene will make everyone in the Nine Snakes and Pirates so amazed that they don't know what kind of expression they should show. I saw that Dover's conquerors, with a stance of overwhelming the top of the mountain, forcefully threatened the three celestial dragons. Taste. There was a crisp sound. The Roswald family wore the bubble hoods on their heads, and they all broke apart. At the same time, the three celestial dragons who originally wanted to take out the phone bug and call Marine Marshal Sengoku suddenly thumped and fell directly to the ground. Because they kneeled down too hard, their pampered knees even knelt out of blood. Advertisement. World. The spiritual time became deadly silent. The three celestial dragons, who had always been supreme and regarded mortals as ants, were like slaves, kneeling to the man. And that man, standing with his hands in his hand, looked like a god, looking down on the common people. This unimaginable horror scene, if you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, absolutely no one would believe it. Shock. Unspeakable shock, echoing in the hearts of everyone. The Nine Snakes and Pirates group has been petrified, even if they have always believed in the most honorable female emperor. At this time, they seem to be inferior to that man. Rob Lucci's eyes were bloodshot with excitement. Celestial dragons kneel down. Ha ha ha. When he used to be a dog for celestial dragons, something that he didn't dare to think about, but it really happened before his eyes. Rob Lucci's fear and devotion to Dover reached an unsurpassed level at this moment. As for Khalifa, it is even more eye-watering, looking at the incomparably stalwart, surging man of boundless kingliness, and can't wait to pounce on it immediately, throwing him in his arms. And behind Dover, Stussy was also unable to conceal his inner shock. Although she surrendered to Dover, she was still in awe of celestial dragons. But at this moment, when he saw celestial dragons facing the man, he could only kneel on the ground like a worm. Stussy suddenly felt that celestial dragons were not so scary. At least in front of that man, the so-called world nobles and the so-called descendants of the creator are nothing at all. However, on the field, the person who was the most shocked in his heart was actually the pirate empress Boa Hancock. Because of her childhood experience, she hates celestial dragons so much that she can kill them all. But as she grew older, she almost desperately discovered that the power of celestial dragons is too great. It is so huge that even one of its subordinates has the strength to crush her. Realizing one thing, Hancock can only bury his hatred in his heart. She even joined Shichibukai for the safety of her daughter's country and her relatives and became a subordinate of those celestial dragons in name. Hancock never thought about it. One day, there is a man who will easily step on the celestial dragons, which she hates and fears, and is so high. And so naturally, the wind is light and the clouds are calm. Is that man a god? Hancock looked at Dover blankly, and muttered in a whisper that only he could hear. Chapter 85 Mariajoy, the Enslaved Celestial Dragons. Advertisement. Kneeling on the ground, this unprecedented humiliation made Rosvard, Zaluria, and Charos all regret for an instant. Who are they? They are the descendants of the creator and creator, celestial dragons. Now, actually kneeling down to a mundane mortal who has never been in the eyes of the day. Moreover, the person looked down on the playful eyes, as if they were the real inferior people. Roswald is almost mad. He is a veteran celestial dragons, and even has a certain strength in the Holy Land Mariajoy. This kind of humiliation made his eyes flushed instantly, and he looked up viciously, staring at the man in front of him. Let go of me, B******************. D. Lousy is the saint of Rosvard, you crappy monkey. However, before Roswald could finish his cursing, there was a sudden pain in his right cheek. A cold and hard heel, Rui hit his face and kicked Roswald directly a few front teeth. Immediately, Roswald's mouth was dripping with blood, and it looked terrible. Khalifa retracted the slender right leg wrapped in black silk mesh and sneered. Pay attention to your words, you are immortal. Don't think of yourself as celestial dragons anymore. In front of Lord Dover, you are a muddy mud. Since surrendering to the heroic king of Dover in the city of Seven Waters, Khalifa has regarded Dover as the most noble existence. She was so satisfied that she only wanted to please Dover, and even secretly, she repeatedly competed with Rob Lucci. Even just now, even Rob Luck didn't dare to shoot easily because of his scruples about celestial dragons and his incomparable noble status in the past. But Khalifa didn't hesitate at all. Khalifa, you actually. Shah Lulia, who was also kneeling on the ground, looked at Khalifa in disbelief. This damn it woman, who was kind and respectful to her in the past, dared to kick her father, Saint Rosvard just now. Shah Lulia was so angry that she was going to yell at Khalifa, but she was slapped and slapped by Khalifa. With this slap fan, Shah Lulia's tender face, which had never been hurt, immediately swelled up. Cherulia Palace, just now, what do you want to say? Advertisement. Khalifa was like a witch, licking her bright red lips, and walked towards Zaluria. Shah Lulia was slapped and regretted by Khalifa. When she reacted, the fiery pain on her face made her tears that she couldn't control immediately. It turns out that celestial dragons can cry too. Khalifa smiled wickedly. In Zalula's eyes, she was undoubtedly the most terrifying devil in the world at this moment. Don't come over, ah. Shah Lulia was completely frightened, her pupils were full of fear, and tears continued to flow. Khalifa stretched out his palm, rubbed Zalulia's unswollen face on the other side, and said with a grin. You deserve to be the pampered celestial dragons. The skin is really tender. It would be nice to be a slave girl for Lord Dover. As he said, Khalifa cast a watery glance at Dover. Dover's careful thoughts of Khalifa were clear. This woman is indeed a little clever, and her loyalty to him is impeccable. Dover didn't say anything more. The Roswald family was already in his pocket. Next, he would use these 3 celestial dragons to spread the magic net among all the celestial dragons. Dover walked into the cabin of the luxurious ship, and Stussy followed Dover. Khalifa and Rob Lucci mentioned 3 celestial dragons like a chicken and walked in. The luxury ship immediately turned around and sailed in the direction of Mariajoy. Hancock stared blankly at the back of the man who had left. While his heart was full of shock, it was suddenly empty. I don't know how long it has been. Hancock finally recovered the same cold arrogance and coquettishness as before, she unquestionably ordered. No one is allowed to talk about this matter. Yes, Lady Empress. The people of the 9 Snakes and Pirates also awoke from the petrochemical process and hurriedly responded. In fact, even if the female emperor didn't say it, they would never reveal a word to the outside world. Because what happened just now was too terrifying, they don't want to cause great trouble for themselves and their daughter's country. The 9 Snakes and Pirates quickly turned around and hurried back to Amazon Lily Island. Advertisement. At the moment the ship turned around, Hancock couldn't help it. He glanced in the direction that the man was leaving, and the feeling of emptiness in his heart expanded. The luxurious ship soon arrived at the Holy Land Mariajoy. Although it is strange that the Holy Family in Roswald, it didn't take long to go out and then came back. But the guards guarding Mariajoy didn't dare to speak too much. Celestial dragons are generally violent and impermanent, they don't want to become slaves because of their talk. However, these guards did not know that celestial dragons, whom they regarded as gods, were trembling in the cabin, bowing to the man on the throne. On the way, Rosbard, Charos, and Cherulia were cleaned up by Khalifa and Rob Lucci. Especially Lucci, because of the hesitation of Celestial Dragon's identity at that moment before, it aroused the beast in his heart. As a result, Rosbard and Charos couldn't help their teeth shaking when they saw him. Just now, Rob Lucci's fierceness really beat the 2 of them miserably, fearing Lucci's beast from his bones. And Zalulia, who was also docile by Khalifa, knelt at Dover's feet, her face was flattering but she couldn't restrain the sweet smile of horror, she was really like a cowering slave girl. Dover looked indifferent. Although he didn't bother to repair the Roswald family by himself, the 3 of them were more afraid of Dover than Luke and Khalifa. Because they know that Lucci and Khalifa are like beasts and witches, but the man on the throne is a real and terrifying demon. In front of that man, they didn't even dare to lift their heads. Coming to Mariajoy again, Dover's dark eyes flashed deep. The childhood experience in Mariajoy has long been blurred, and Dover seemed to have seen it for the first time, looking at this magnificent, majestic, brilliant giant city built with the most precious resources of the entire pirate world. He stood with his hands behind, as if he was staring silently at the world's oldest, most solemn, most terrifying, and most supreme kingdom of gods. For a moment, Stussy, Lucci, Khalifa, and even the 3 celestial dragons were in a trance. It seems that the man in front of him is the real master of this kingdom of gods. At this time, Dover spoke. How much do you know about that? Chapter 86 Celestial Dragons Sinking into Hell, Set Fire to the World. Advertisement. Lord Yim, the tallest existence in the celestial dragons, the man who even the 5 elders would bow to, is extremely mysterious. Even though Dover, as a traverser, has the vision of a prophet, he has little understanding of it. Hearing Dover's questioning, Rosbard, Charles, and Cherulia all looked blank. Obviously, they are the first time they heard the name Yim. My lord, Rosbard winced his head, and called Dover as an adult with difficulty and jerky. Who is Im? The young one has never heard of it. Charles and Zalulia also shook their heads again and again. Dover frowned. The Roswad 3 people, it is impossible to have the guts to lie to him at this moment. But to be on the safe side, Dover is going to ask Viola to search their heads in the future. But no matter what, the reaction of the Roswald trio is enough to prove that Lord Yim is extremely mysterious. I am afraid that apart from 5 elders, ordinary people celestial dragons do not know the existence of this person. After Dover thought for a moment, he sneered, 66-7, in his heart. No matter how mysterious Naim is, what kind of methods are hidden behind him? In the near future, Dover will have to reveal his true body from the dark. At the moment, Dover asked no more. The group came to the royal palace of the Roswald family unimpeded. This palace is extremely extravagant. All the installations are the rarest things in the entire sea. In the meantime, it was full of servants of various races wearing collars. After seeing Roswald's figure, these servants were all crawling on the ground, afraid to make any slight movements and noises. Celestial dragons like to do this, it is well-known thing, and even taking the strong as servants has become the capital of the celestial dragons to show off each other. Stussy, who was following Dover, flashed her spirit eyes and smiled. Celestial dragons, it's really nasty. Master Joker, do you want the 3 of them to taste this too? On the way here, Rob Lucci and Khalifa cleaned up the Roswald family, but Stussy was too dirty to do it. But when it comes to training servants, the target is celestial dragons, who didn't dare to look at it before. As the queen of the pleasure district, Stussy, who is very good at this, is quite interested. Hearing this, Khalifa's eyes lit up immediately. It was obvious that she was also extremely enthusiastic about Stussy's suggestion. The Rosbard trio were pale and trembling. The palace where they used to enjoy themselves, at this moment makes them feel like they are in hell. But they did not dare to resist, even if they were in their own nest, they could not have the idea of resisting. Because their life and death had already been controlled by that man with some strange means. Another important point is that the man has something that they desperately desire, even desperately wanting to get it. Dover did not respond to Stussy's proposal, and he walked straight into Rosvard's luxurious palace. Advertisement. However, Stussy and Khalifa looked at each other as if they had a sharp heart. The two women's equally bright and attractive red lips curled at the same time. Lord Dover didn't agree, but he didn't refuse it either. Dover naturally sat on the throne that originally belonged to Roswald, and took out a few light blue pills in his hand. Seeing this light blue pill, the pupils of the three Roswalds unexpectedly showed wolf-like greedy eyes. Especially for Charles Rose, his nose almost ran into his mouth, his throat kept rolling, and he murmured unconsciously. Elixir of life elixir. This idiot has not reacted until now. It is not an elixir at all, but some kind of poison that makes people hallucinate and intoxicated. With a sarcasm at the corner of Dover's mouth, he threw 3 light blue pills on the ground. The Rosvard 3, immediately like dogs, went over and licked the pill into their mouths. Stussy looked at the 3 celestial dragons who were originally supreme. Master Joker, is it too cruel for you to do this? Dover gave the woman a faint look. The woman was thinking about torturing people with Khalifa just now. How could he not guess? Seeing Dover's eyes, Stussy burst into his heart, knowing that he couldn't hide his thoughts from this man. In her big eyes full of fox colors, she couldn't help showing a touch of grievance. Taking a graceful step, she leaned her exquisite and delicate body softly on Dover's shoulder, and said whispered. I know they are wrong, Joker-sama. The superb acting is truly breathtaking. On the other side, Khalifa also felt tight. However, seeing Master Dover did not mean to blame them. Seeing that Stussy's fox Mizi was so shameless, Khalifa also boldly leaned her tender body on Dover's other shoulder. Khalifa looked very nervous. It was the first time that she and Dover were so close, and she stammered. Master Dover, everyone knows it is wrong. Dover let out a laugh, but he didn't bother to take care of the 2 girls. Dover regained his gaze on the 3 of Roswald, and his low and evil voice came from his mouth. You guys, do you want more pills like this? The Rosvard trio were shocked, and they immediately nodded like a chicken pecking at the rice. The greed and thirst in their eyes were not concealed. Buddha howl ha ha ha, very good. Dover said with a meaningful smile. If you want more pills, sell them to more celestial dragons. As soon as this remark came out, a cold wind suddenly hit the palace, making Rob Lucci and even the 2 women leaning on both sides of Dover chill in their hearts. They all know what the blue pill is. Although it looks ordinary, once a person eats it, the body will continue to be eroded. Those who have eaten it will still crave more, which will increase the erosion of the body. Advertisement. This is something more terrifying than deadly poison. If such a thing circulates among celestial dragons, then these celestial dragons standing above the clouds will not be far from sinking into hell. And what shocked several people was that it was Dover's next words. But this kind of thing is not provided for free, even if one is 500 million Baileys. 500 million. Even if Rob Lucci is a wild person, even if Stussy and Khalifa were still turning, how to train celestial dragons into slaves, but after hearing Dover's words, they couldn't help but stare. Not only have to pull celestial dragons into hell, but also squeeze endless wealth from celestial dragons. This. Simply. A few people didn't know what adjectives to use for a while, but there was one thing they knew very well. That is, celestial dragons will be completely pulled down from the altar from now on. In the future, what a miserable end the celestial dragons will be, even they are unpredictable. However, the Roswald trio couldn't think of so much. They were satisfied with the blue pills. They crawled on the ground in a hurry, and said with gratitude. Thank you, sir. Dover's eyes were extremely deep. His purpose in doing this is not only to extract wealth from celestial dragons 4.6, but the deeper purpose is the entire pirate world. Imagine that a pill of 500 million Baileys, celestial dragons, which are not produced, come from where so much money. They can only intensify their demands for more heavenly gold. And what kind of gunpowder barrel will the world become? I am afraid that the people will not have a life, and the beacon will be everywhere, right? Will the revolutionary army hidden in the dark rebel in advance? What will the 4 emperors and ambitious careerists who are hostile to the world government do? Can Marines who claim to be righteous can unswervingly protect such a world government? Dover is really curious and interested. As he said to Robin on the yacht a few months ago. This world has been at ease for too long. It rots. Fester. Exudes a disgusting breath. Just put a fire on it, and add a strong flame to it. Isn't it fun to let it explode completely? Chapter 87 Find the cause of dark fruit, the Empress. Advertisement. Dover left Mariajoy. Before leaving, he handed the blue pill to Khalifa and Lucci, and they, together with the other members of the original CP9, made a plan to pull celestial dragons into the hell. At the same time, Dover also bid farewell to Stussy. This woman can be described as the intelligence queen of the underground world, and as a long-term senior spy of the world government, she also has more access to government secrets. For Dover, it would be more useful to let Stussy continue to be her queen of the pleasure district instead of taking her with her. With Stussy's exquisite mind, I understand this. However, at the time of parting, she still pouted the red Sakura peach mouth, and said aggrieved. After using others, I just want to drive them away. What a conscientious Lord Joker. With her eyes full of resentment and pitifulness, I am afraid that no one can tell whether she is acting true or not. But it is certain that this woman has been completely tied to Dover at this point. Dover raised Stussy's clean and delicate chin, and said with a deep smile. Go, the world will become more and more exciting. How can a woman like you be willing to be a canary in a cage? What's more, I still need you to help me find dark fruit. Dark fruit, this extremely weird and powerful devil fruit not only has the power to invalidate the ability of the capable person, but also the ability to seize the ability of another capable person. In the original book, Blackbeard Teach got the dark fruit at 11, and he lurked on the Whitebeard ship for decades. In the War on the Top, it even seized the power of Whitebeard shock fruit and became the new 4 emperors. The power and importance of dark fruit can be imagined. But Dover wanted dark fruit not only because of dark fruit's powerful abilities. On the other hand, it is for the huge plan that has been brewing in my mind for a long time and is destined to destroy the world. When Stussy heard Dover's words, her chest couldn't help softening like never before. Although this man is stalwart and domineering, he is often indifferent and makes people wonder what he is thinking. But sometimes, they will say something that is strangely touching. Stussy grabbed Dover's big hand with her white and slender hands. Immediately after turning around very quickly, stepping on the moonwalk, stepping on the air, flying away like a dancing magpie, sweet ding-dong giggles came at the same time. I'm leaving, Master Joker, don't miss me. Dover looked at the girl's slender back, clearly seeing her pretty face rising up with a rouge, indelible blush, and he couldn't help but shook his head and laughed. This woman, although she is called Queen of the Pleasure District, actually had no real experience at all. Although the surface is bold and open, once there is any contact, it will immediately be shy and tight. But I have to say that this kind of woman is different from the women around Dover, so I really don't have a taste. Advertisement. However, Dover didn't know. There is also a great beauty who is all over the country and the country is beautiful, and is also different from the women around him. At this time, because of him, he has an unprecedented weight. Grand Line. It is a very strange channel in the center of the world, which connects with the Red Line and divides the entire sea into 4 parts. All ambitious pirates must sail on the Grand Line to finally reach the ultimate island Raftel. On both sides of the Grand Line, there are also calm belts filled with sea kings. If you want to pass the calm belt, you must be strong enough to ignore countless sea kings, such as Roger's deputy, Pluten Rayleigh. Either there are special means, such as special warships made by the government using seastone craftsmanship. In addition, there is only the only country that exists on the calm belt, the country of Amazon Lily Island, commonly known as the Daughter Country, and there is a way to pass the calm belt. At this time, all the citizens of the Daughter Country warmly welcomed the return of the Empress. But they didn't know that the powerful female emperor, whom they respected and loved so much, thought that everything was omnipotent, immediately fell on the embroidered couch after returning to the bedroom. His face was extremely beautiful and flawless, and his face was flushed red, and his white jade forehead was even hotter. My sister, what happened to you? The 2 sisters of the Empress, Sandersonia and Marigold, stood anxiously by the head of the bed, very panicked. They have never seen a big sister like this before, and even with the great strength of her big sister, in fact, they have never been sick at all, let alone such a serious illness that they can't even speak. The 2 women were completely panicked for a while, and turned around in a hurry, but there was nothing to do. And the female Emperor Boya, Hancock, on the beautiful jade body, with the passage of time, the temperature emitted has become higher, so that the whole body shows a star red color. She turned back and forth, resting her jade porcelain lotus root arm on her forehead, looking extremely painful. If this goes on, I'm afraid my elder sister. Sandersonia and Marigold looked at each other, their pupils overflowing with tears and boundless panic at the same time. Thinking of what the Daughter Country would be like if there were no older sisters sitting in town, the 2 of them could not contain their bodies trembling. Snake G, is there something wrong with Snake G? Suddenly, a short old woman with a cane broke in. Seeing the old woman, Sandersonia and Marigold, they didn't throw them out as usual, but it was like seeing a savior. Mother-in-law, you are so knowledgeable, you must know what disease your sister has, right? Sandersonia asked hurriedly. The old woman is the last emperor of the Daughter Country, Granny Zai. Advertisement. Yesterday the mother-in-law looked at the expression of the Empress, she was shocked and she grabbed Sandersonia's clothes and asked. What happened when you went out this time? Especially what man you met, tell me all about it. Man. As soon as Sandersonia and Marigold heard what Granny Zai had said, the figure that made them fearful immediately appeared in their minds. Could it be that the man did something to the elder sister? If that were the case, no matter how much the 2 feared that person, they would never give up. Marigold immediately said, Doflamingo. The only man we met on this trip was the Shichibukai, the heavenly Yaksha Doflamingo. What? Granny Zai was shocked all over. If it were a normal man, Granny Zai would immediately ask 670 Sandersonia and Marigold to kill that person to prevent future troubles. But if that person is Shichibukai. Granny Zai suddenly rolled her eyes, and JD disappeared in shock and panic, and she also showed a smile on her face. He, if it's that man, it might still be a good thing. What? Sandersonia and Marigold looked blank, completely wondering what the mother-in-law Zai meant. Granny Zai's wrinkled old face revealed a light of yearning and understanding. Snake G doesn't have any disease. If you have to say it is disease, it is lovesickness. The mother-in-law said in a positive tone yesterday. Lovesickness. Sandersonia and Marigold were unbelievable. The 2 people have always believed that their sister is the most noble and beautiful woman in the world, and no man can be worthy of her sister. But when I thought of that man, the shocking scene of celestial dragons bowing down, the thought of Zahn even collapsed again. Sandersonia and Marigold couldn't help but glance at each other subconsciously, and said at the same time. If your sister really falls in love with that man, it's not impossible. Hey. Yesterday's mother-in-law smiled excitedly. You too, if you want Snake G to get better as soon as possible, you should hurry up to find that man, let him come to the daughter country and get married with Snake G. Married. Hearing this word, Sandersonia and Marigold even stared out. Chapter 88 Unexpected Invitation, the Vinsmoke Clan. Advertisement. Hancock lay on the incense couch. She felt weak and weak. The cheeks are hot and even the ears are hot. Hancock had never felt this way before. She wanted to gather her strength to restore her usual cold, arrogant and powerful posture. But no matter how she tried, she couldn't do it. What the hell is going on with me at this moment? Hancock's thinking was also a little tranced. There was always a figure flashing in her mind. The figure was extremely tall and stalwart, with hockey on her body that shocked her too. More importantly, the figure seemed to hate her extremely but helpless celestial dragons, and easily played it between applause. Does such a person really exist? Hancock couldn't help but doubt the picture in his mind. The power of celestial dragons is so huge. The marine controlled by celestial dragons alone is undoubtedly the #1 power in the ocean. Any single 4 emperors cannot be Marine's opponent. Hancock's sanity told her that she couldn't believe the hallucinations in her mind when she was sick. But subconsciously, she felt that it was not an illusion, but a real thing. HMPH, whether it's true or not, since it appears in the concubine's mind, the concubine always needs to know your true face. The Empress attitude in Hancock's heart was aroused. She recalled desperately, trying to see the figure clearly. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from Hancock's ear, which Hancock knew was her sister, Marigold. Doflamingo. The man we met on this trip. Hancock didn't hear the latter words clearly. Because the word Doflamingo made her feel dizzy as soon as she heard it. At the same time, she finally saw that the figure that lingered in her mind was the man named Doflamingo. Hancock woke up for a moment. She was covered with fragrant sweat. She opened a pair of beautiful, blank eyes, and stared at the ceiling in a daze. She remembered that there really is a man in the world who can trample celestial dragons on the soles of their feet. She had seen it with her own eyes not long ago. Moreover, the man once called her, Hanku, K. Advertisement. At this time, the voices of the 2 younger sisters came again in the ears, and they were extremely clear. Marriage. Mother-in-law, are you kidding? Do you know who that man is? Have you done anything? Humph. Granny Zaw's voice said, don't think I'm really a stubborn and decadent old woman, but I often read newspapers. That Doflamingo, is Shichibukai the same as Snake Heim? Marigold and Sandersonia wanted to say something, but stopped abruptly. They must not say anything about the terrible things that the man has done, otherwise it will definitely bring disaster to the daughter country. In short, that man is definitely not a good match for my sister. Sandersonia and Marigold shook their heads together. That man was so terrible, they didn't want to have a brother-in-law who was terrified at the first glance. Unexpectedly, Granny Zaw sneered and said, what do you know? That person is Shichibukai, Snake G is also Shichibukai, and even the #1 beauty in the world. Once the two are combined, even Marine and world government will never dare to move our daughter country again. It turns out that the reason why Mother Zaw turned from worry to joy was because of Dover's identity. When the 2 Shichibukai become a husband and wife, they will indeed become an extremely powerful force that no one dares to take lightly. Granny Zaw continued. Besides, do you care about the life and death of Snake G? For women in our daughter country, once you like a man, it is a lifetime thing, and it will not change throughout your life. Is it tormented by illness? Upon hearing this, Sandersonia and Marigold finally stopped shaking their heads. Yes, even if that man is extremely terrifying, the life and death of your sister is even more important. The 2 gritted their teeth and said, okay, let's go to Dressrosa. After speaking, just as the 2 were about to turn around, a cold voice came from the incense couch. Stop. Don't go. Hancock braced himself on his still feeble body and stood up. With an indifference like a glacier on her face, she looked at Granny Zaw and sneered. Who said I like that man? Humph. Hancock raised his white porcelain chin proudly. In this world, is there any man worthy of a concubine? Yesterday's mother-in-law and Hancock's 2 younger sisters, seeing the joy when Hancock stood up, were shocked by the cold yelling of the latter. Advertisement. Granny Zaw observed Snake G's expression. She knew that Snake G was a very proud generation of empress. I am afraid that Sandersonia and Marigold, to find that man, stimulated Snake G's self-esteem. Granny Zaw persuaded. Snake G, you can't do this, the big deal is to let that man come to you. Before he finished speaking, Hancock picked him up directly, threw it outside the window, and fell down. After solving Granny Zaw, Hancock's still cold beautiful eyes glanced at his 2 younger sisters. You guys, you must forget what happened in Gang O, have you heard it? Sandersonia and Marigold trembled. They didn't know the sister, why the illness suddenly recovered, and why there was such a big fire suddenly, and they lowered their heads like a chill. I see, my sister. The scene that happened in Amazon Lily Island has returned to Dover of Dressrosa without knowing it. Dover was sitting on the high throne, surrounded by beauty. The arrogantly curved Monet was reporting to him a rather unexpected incident. Young master, during your absence, the Derma 66 clan of North Blue has called you several times. Dover twitched his eyebrows. Germa 66, also known as the Vinsmoke clan, is a world-famous technology and assassination clan who tried to unify North Blue. In the original book, in order to unify the North Blue Dream, Vinsmoke, Judge, the patriarch of the Germa clan, wants to form an alliance with the four emperors. But unfortunately, his eyes were blinded by greed, but instead he was played around by his aunt. But this time, Judge would take the initiative to find himself. What kind of hell was it? Dover couldn't help but listen to Monet's nice voice and continued with some interest. Wang Zhao's young master, you know that our underground arms industry, thanks to the technology you brought back from Wano Kuni and Punk Hazard, has improved several levels than before. Many countries that are not very powerful, because they have bought our weapons, have on the contrary defeated the more powerful enemy countries. This naturally led to the fact that Dressrosa's excellent reputation for weapons quickly spread all over the world. Many countries far away want to buy our weapons, and the purpose of the Jack Horse clan is precisely this. Dover nodded lightly. With Judge's militant temperament, finding himself for weapons is indeed an important reason. But it should not be the main reason. After all, Germa's own weapons are already quite advanced. There should be other reasons. Monet had an angel-like face, and immediately showed a gentle and snowy smile. Young master, I can't hide anything from you. Buying weapons is only one aspect. The biggest purpose of Germa is to form an alliance with you. Chapter 89 The Omnipotent Joker, Vinsmoke Reiju, seeking subscription. Advertisement. Alliance. This is Vinsmoke, Judge's usual method. His ambitions are not small, but due to the limitation of his own strength, even with the powerful Germa technology, he can only dominate in North Blue, and even this dominance is difficult to last. Therefore, Judge likes to use the means of alliance to get closer to the strong, so as to realize his dream of completely unifying North Blue. However, Judge did not approach the four emperors as in the original book, but instead approached himself, which was extremely interesting. After all, my impression of the outside world is still just a Shichibukai, which is far inferior compared with four emperors. Master Dover. There was Robin who hadn't seen him for a while, then Yingying walked up. After living in Dressrosa for a few months, Robin's skin is more delicate and textured than before. Even if you just glance at it, you can see how amazing its elasticity is. Robin smiled and said with bright eyes and teeth. You have been in the underground world recently, but you are very famous. I heard that you made Kamui on Happy Street and crushed all the kings of the Dark World to death. Only Queen of the Pleasure District Stussy escaped. Such a hockey, even if it attracts Germa to take the initiative to vote, it is not uncommon. What Robin said was naturally what happened on Happy Street in Dover a few days ago. However, what Robin got was only a version passed to the outside world. Of course, the real situation was concealed by Dover and Stussy. But despite this, several great Dark World kings were killed by the same person on the same day, causing an uproar in the underground world. There are no more than 670 people who are the Dark Middleman Joker, and suddenly they are so cruel and shocked. At the same time, the families of those great kings wanted to come to Dressrosa to find Dover for revenge. However, they were all thousands of miles away from Dressrosa, and they were discovered by Viola, who possessed the staring fruit. As a result, Pika, Torapal, Diamante, and the three highest cadres of the Devil Fruit family who had already awakened, were backhanded. After this incident, people felt a little horrified at Dover's powerful strength and influence. Although Dover has not been compared with the four emperors, some people have already called Dover as the true king of darkness, the devil in human skin, the bloodthirsty demon. And because Dover runs an increasingly large military industry, Dover has a more resounding title in the dark world, that is, the Omnipotent Joker. In short, Dover's current momentum in the dark world has expanded many times than before. Hearing Robin's analysis, the women nodded again and again. For Robin's intelligence and knowledge, even Monet was extremely convinced. Dover looked at Robin, not wanting the latter to suddenly close his left eye, the only big right eye that was open, blinked mischievously, and said with a hint. It's just a little bit strange to me, Lord Joker, with your strength, how can people escape? Or because that person is a beautiful woman. Advertisement. The words came out. There were several pouting laughs in the hall. The granulated sugar lying in Dover's arms, while eating grapes, patted his tender white hands, and said with a grin. Sister Robin is right, the young master just likes beautiful women. At this moment, the women held back a smile even more. Monet glared at the sugar, blaming her for talking too much. Baby Five blushed and lowered his head, thinking that he is also a beautiful woman, the young master must like me too. Even the little human princess man surely has a shy face and a suffocating smile. Dover's rare old face blushed. Although Robin's guess was wrong, it was a little closer to the truth. However, Dover naturally didn't have to explain anything, he was sitting on the throne, bold and grandiose, and said to Robin domineeringly. You little woman, really getting more and more presumptuous. Come here. With a cry, Robin shrank in fright, and walked toward Dover timidly, and said pitifully. Master Dover, the little girl knows she is wrong. Dover couldn't see Robin's performance, and he was a little funny in his heart. He directly stopped Robin's extremely slender willow waist and pulled it into his arms in Robin's tender voice. Then Dover pinched her lovely pink face in the pitiful voice of Sugar begging for mercy. After some fun, the atmosphere was extremely relaxed. Monet said at this time, Young master, do you know what are the conditions for Germa to form an alliance with you? I want to marry you. Illustration. Marriage. As soon as the word came out, several voices of opposition immediately sounded in the hall. No. Among them, the sounds of Sugar and Baby Five are the loudest. Baby 5 said angrily. What is Germa? Dare you marry the young master? Sugar also rarely agrees. Baby 5, the weapon girl she always dislikes. That's it. Granulated Sugar squeezed her small fist and waved it. Then Germa is too ignorant, so just turn them all into toys. At the same time, North Blue, a huge fleet with an area comparable to Beg, the territory of a country, is floating on the sea. On the top of the fleet, there is a 66 logo, which is Megatron North Blue, the kingdom of Germa that even Marine does not dare to easily provoke. Germa is also the only country in the world that has no territory but is allowed to participate in the World Summit, which shows its strength. Advertisement. However, the founder of Germa, the current patriarch Vinsmoke Judge, is still extremely dissatisfied with his military power. It is indispensable for Lousy to rule North Blue, marry Joker, and obtain the Joker Master's countless weapons, funds, and the support of his huge power. Do you understand, Reiju? Inside the main battleship of Germa, the tall and fortified Vinsmoke Judge shouted loudly at his only daughter. On both sides of the round table, there are also Judge's sons. The winch green Yuji smiled nonchalantly. Reiju, don't disobey your father's wishes. What's more, I heard that Joker is very powerful, and even the kings of the Dark Worlds were killed by him like stepping on ants. Dengekuren Niji also said. Reiju, you better think clearly, this is not something you can make a decision. Located on the side of Judge, the eldest son, Spark Red IG, folded his arms on his chest and said indifferently. You must obey your father's orders, Reiju, this is a great thing for Germa, and no accidents are allowed. Several brothers, including Father Judge, stared at the pink butterfly woman in the corner of the table with stern eyes. Women have long pink hair, purple eyes, and the corners of the eyebrows are the unique circle patterns of the Vinsmoke family. She wore the same pink tight-fitting dress, her figure was very graceful, and her pale pink lips added a seductive charm. This woman is the only woman in the Vinsmoke clan, Vinsmoke. Reiju is also the bargaining chip that Judge wants to marry Dover this time. Looking at the persecuting eyes of my father and my brothers, and listening to my so-called relatives, the cold-blooded words on their lips were all profit and use without a trace of affection. Even though Reiju knew that his father and brothers were monsters without emotion many years ago, he still couldn't help but feel cold inside at this moment. At this time, Reiju, JD remembered the youngest brother who had not seen him for many years, and who still had human emotions. Sanji, fortunately you left such a monster country. Now, you are outside, so you should be living well. Reiju thought silently. Although her heart is cold, her expression is not sad or disappointed. Having lived in such a family for a long time, even if she is still a normal person, she has learned to hide her true emotions. Reiju, answer me, do you agree or not? Judge gave his final notice and asked gloomily. Reiju did not remain silent this time, her pale pink lips evoked an arc of sarcasm. My father, you have sent invitations to that Joker. Is there still room for me to refuse? As Reiju said, Gagazi made countless calls to Dover a few days ago. Although he didn't get through, his invitations were sent out a long time ago. Knowing this, Reiju deliberately rejected Judge just to test the reaction of his father and the surrounding brothers. As a result, it was exactly the same as Reiju had expected before. No one cared about her feelings, and no one cared about her happiness. She was just a tool used by the family. Reiju was completely heartbroken, but on the face he was extremely calm, as if he was used as a marriage tool, not himself. Chapter 90 to North Blue, Marine Admiral Aokiji. Advertisement. The cadres of Donquixote family all dismissed the Vinsmoke family's ignorant requirements for alliance. After all, Dressrosa today is far from what it used to be. The interior is extremely stable, with a huge industry such as the fire-like weapons trade and the smile being vigorously built. The outside is connected to the Four Emperors Kaido, and the network of influence in the underground world has expanded to the entire world of pirates due to the original forces of the several Dark Kings who were easily taken over and crushed by Dover. But judging from these points, Dressrosa's strength is far from the general Chi Wuhai forces comparable. For the Vinsmoke clan who live in North Blue, everyone looks down on it at this time, but it's normal. What's more, Vinsmoke Judge, that B******** D guy, dare to say marriage. The girls around Dover were all filled with righteous indignation. In their minds, Master Young Master is the most noble, powerful, and supreme being in the world, and no woman is worthy of Master Young Master. If Vinsmoke Judge is really acquainted, he should send his daughter, who is also said to be like a jade, obediently, maybe she can still be a foot-washing maid. As for the marriage of Junger Bajing as the main room, it is simply wishful thinking. Without paying too much attention to the unrestrained thoughts of the girls, Dover thought for a while, but decided to go to the North Blue Germa Kingdom for a trip. The next day, Dover boarded and used the seastone craftsmanship obtained from Wanokuni to make a majestic ship and set off towards North Blue. On the ship, there were also several Germa combatants who were sent by Judge to deliver invitations. They were dressed in uniform combat uniforms, the same body was strong, sturdy back and strong, and they even looked exactly the same. Is this the legendary land of killers, people of Germa? Robin's beautiful eyes looked at in amazement, and the three Germa fighters were carved out of a mold, and said curiously. On this trip, Robin took the initiative to ask to be with Dover. Robin's reason is that she is born with a strong thirst for knowledge, and she also shoulders the burden of solving the gap for 100 years. If she always stays in one place comfortably, it won't work. Faced with the reason for the whole foot, the Sugar and Baby Five girls actually lit their little heads, as if they agreed with Robin's words how much. Dover seemed to smile, knowing that because of the so-called marriage, the daughters were very worried about this trip, for fear that he would really marry a young master's wife. Therefore, the little devil, Sugar, took the lead and secretly made an idea for Robin to follow him out and be a spy. Before he left, Dover knocked the sugary cute bear on the head, causing a grieved mouth to squash. But when Dover turned around, she immediately spit out her little pink tongue, grimaced, and looked triumphantly triumphant. Advertisement. Because Robin succeeded in following Dover. However, this is mainly because Dover also thinks that a woman like Robin is not suitable for a corner. At least before the historical truth of the world is solved, Robin's experience and insights need to be further improved. Buddha haha. Hearing Robin's question, Dover laughed lowly. His gaze cast a deep glance at the Germa combatant who was before him and bowed to him on one knee, and said meaningfully. After all, it is a family that has developed pedigree factors. Some special places are also normal. Bloodline factor. Robin chewed the word. As knowledgeable as her, I have seen this word in the book. But more information about the descent factor was directly erased in that book. Robin only knows that the bloodline factor was first discovered by the world's first scientist and Vegapunk. Although there are very few descriptions about descent factors in the book, the few adjectives are enough to prove that it is definitely not a simple thing. The three of Germa are almost exactly the same all over the body. Are they all because of descent factors? Robin was very curious. She stepped forward, took Dover's arm, smiled happily, with bright eyes and bright teeth, apparently wanting to ask Dover and more information about the descent factor. Today's Robin is wearing a sky blue windbreaker and orange sunglasses casually placed on his smooth forehead. The pink skirt of the lower body is tied around the extremely slender waist, and the small and beautiful belly button, like the most beautiful agate in the world, is dotted on the skin full of texture and luster. When Dover moved in his heart, he stretched out his big hand, wrapped Robin's waist, and walked into the cabin with him. The three fighters of Germa did not dare to raise their heads from beginning to end. Drive quickly in the direction of North Blue. North Blue, Kingdom of Germa. After receiving the news that Dover would come to North Blue himself, Vinsmoke, Judge, were overjoyed. Even, he ordered directly. Let IG and his three sons seize the time to conquer cities and land, conquer several small countries, seize food and wine, and entertain the most honorable guests in the history of Germa. Please ask for flowers. At the same time, Judge also let people refurbish the giant ship of the Kingdom of Germa, with lights and festoons, as if a wedding is about to be held. Advertisement. Ha ha ha. Reiju, you have to dress up well these days. I heard that Mr. Joker is surrounded by beautiful women with beautiful scenery. You can't be compared by them, let alone lose me Vinsmock. The face of the group, do you know? Judge thought of the coming man and the power behind that man. He couldn't help the ecstasy in his heart, and solemnly told Reiju below. Reiju looked calm, and his pale pink lips spit out a few words coldly. Understood. Immediately, turned around and left. Judge frowned and looked at the back of her daughter leaving, but said nothing. 0. Reiju is about to marry that person. Even if he is a father and wants to teach Reiju later, he has to weigh it carefully. After all, Judge also heard that the man seemed to be very good to his own woman. For Judge, he was quite disapproving, even contemptuous. Women are something, even the so-called family affection, compared to that Wangtu domineering, what is it? Thinking of marrying that person, he would definitely be able to dominate the future of North Blue, and Judge's eyes couldn't help but flashed with fanaticism. Just as Vinsmock Judge was extremely excited, preparing for the upcoming wedding. Marine Headquarters, Marineford, a lazy figure exuding the cold breath of Ultimate, also received the news of Dover going to North Blue. Is there finally news? It's not easy. I want to get the whereabouts of that man. The lazy figure exhaled, and it seemed that even the air in front of him had condensed into icy slag in an instant. He stood up, his tall body cast a huge shadow on the ground in front of him, and the sea soldiers who came to report the news couldn't help but shrink from fear. The lazy figure picked up the bicycle on the side, sat on it, and rode straight to the sea. The liquid sea level immediately formed ice wherever the bicycle went, for the wheels to roll. Lazily figure on the bicycle, waving casually. Don't tell me about my going out, especially not let Marshal Sengoku know. The sea soldiers behind heard the words for a moment, and then hurriedly stood at attention, shouting Kaido. Yes, Lord Admiral. The tall and lazy figure is amazingly Marine Admiral, Aokiji. Chapter 91 Aokiji's Purpose, Reiju's Plan. Advertisement. Marine Admiral Aokiji, whose real name is Kuzan, is capable of frozen fruit. He pursues lazy justice, has a bad memory, and looks lazy all day long. But to say that among the three Admiral, who upholds the justice is the most just, that is undoubtedly Aokiji. Although he seems to be lazy, he has been paying close attention to the development of the world's situation. Aokiji's gaze is not only limited to marine, he always pays attention to the news of the dark world, and has some contact with certain underground forces. In the original book, after failing to compete with Akainu for the marshal, Aokiji left marine immediately, and it is rumored that he has moved closer to Blackbeard, who has the ability to obtain double fruits. Although the rumors cannot be taken seriously, and it is difficult to determine, it can undoubtedly prove that Aokiji is a person with his own thinking and choice. He would not restrain himself as a mere marine. 670. Just like more than 10 years ago, he let go of the little girl called the son of the devil during the Ohara disaster. Well, the little girl at that time should be a beautiful, slim beauty now. Aokiji thought casually while riding his bicycle. After releasing Robin for more than 10 years, Aokiji Wei has been silently paying attention to Robin's growth. From when Robin joined a dark organization to when that organization was eliminated by the world government, from Robin betrayed the original organization and escaped, to soon joined another organization. All Robin's experience, Aokiji is actually very clear. As a result, Robin had been in contact with Crocodile, one of the original Shichibukai, and Aokiji had also received a bit of wind. But he didn't care too much at the time. After all, although Crocodile is Shichibukai, his strength is still far behind Aokiji. Aokiji had a tentative attitude at the time, ready to see the son of the devil. After joining the Shichibukai organization, what will happen to the world? However, after that, the trajectory of the development of the matter quickly surpassed Aokiji's estimation, and reached a point where he felt at a loss and uncontrollable. Because the sand crocodile was suddenly exposed to his conspiracy in Alabasta and was sent to the great undersea prison by Marine Vice Admiral Virgo. And the trace of that woman suddenly disappeared completely. Advertisement. Before Aokiji could react, he lost all news about Robin in the blink of an eye. Even using the power of the black market in the underground world, there is no trace of that woman. Aokiji suddenly had a very bad premonition. He felt that the trajectory of the world was likely to be accompanied by the sudden disappearance of that woman, and quickly slipped to an uncontrollable level. Therefore, Aokiji has been looking for Robin ever since. He has been to East Blue and has found the men of Targus, the original East Blue pirate who has taken refuge in other pirates. He has been to the place Robin used to hide. Aokiji, who didn't let go of a clue, finally vaguely discovered that all the clues seemed to point to a man who hadn't had any contact with Robin before. That man is Shichibukai, who is trickier than Sand Crocodile, Tianyega, Donquixote Doflamingo. Robin, the son of the devil, is probably in that person's hands. With speculation, Aokiji also secretly followed Dover's news. Although there is almost no news about Dover, a few vague rumors are enough to let Aokiji know that the man is definitely not simple. Not long ago, at a high-level meeting about the punk hazard incident convened by Marshal Sengoku, Aokiji accidentally learned that Garp and Crane were also in the hands of the man and suffered a great loss. This matter made Aokiji no longer able to calm down. He had to make sure, Robin was really in that man's hands. If it is really there, Aokiji will never allow this to happen. Because there are various signs that Doflamingo and Crocodile are not the same. That is a man who will cause great trouble to the world. Dover didn't know that because of Robin, he had been sent to the town by the dignified Marine Admiral and Aokiji. Now, inside the cabin of the big ship built by Seastone, a handsome man with a strong body and well-defined muscles is holding a stunning woman like water. Dover looked down. Robin, whose pretty face was flushed, smiled faintly, then leaned over his smooth and white jade porcelain-like forehead and gave a light kiss. Just now, although nothing really happened. Advertisement. But Robin has treasured his first kiss for 24 years, but it has been dedicated to Dover. The blood factor is something called a gene. And the reason why humans can inherit traits is also due to genes. The shyness gradually faded. Robin was like a curious baby, with big eyes like stars, looking at the man who was close to Chi-Chi shiningly. It turned out that Dover also told Robin about genes. If Dover's expectation is not bad, the so-called descent factor discovered by Vegapunk should be his previous life's genes. Robin is really curious when he hears men talking. Why is there nothing in this world that this man doesn't know? Robin felt more and more that Dover was like an all-knowing prophet, like a god who is aloof and overlooks all living beings. It's no wonder that I, who is always calm, vigilant, and will not repay anyone with absolute trust, fell in love with this man in such a short period of time and couldn't help himself. It really fell into your clutches. Robin blinked, and suddenly remembered something. I heard that the princess of the Vinsmoke family is also a rare beauty. Now, it is estimated that it is impossible to escape the clutches of this man, right? Thinking of this, Robin couldn't help but taste a little bit. He immediately lowered his head and gave a small bite on Dover's broad chest. After a bite, Dover didn't feel anything, but Robin himself laughed. On the way to Germa, Dover and Robin have been living a leisurely and wonderful life since 4.6, and the other heroine of this incident, Vinsmoke Reiju, is sitting in the boudoir, turning about not so beautiful thoughts. My father was determined to use her as a tool to marry out, and the brothers were also cold-blooded and indifferent. Reiju's heart is dead a long time ago. She had already planned it. On the day of the wedding, on the day when her father was happiest, she had a complete break with Germa, a country full of monsters. The only thing Reiju was worried about was Sanji, the youngest brother who didn't know where he was. Sanji, I really want to see you again, but unfortunately, I'm afraid there will be no chance again. A woman who is as beautiful as a butterfly, with pale pink-red lips, smiles softly. However, at this moment, it is full of sad beauty. Chapter 92 3 times the gold in the sky, an extremely turbulent world. Advertisement. Holy Land, Mariajoy. Recently, among celestial dragons, a magical pill called eternal medicine has become popular. According to a celestial dragons who has taken this pill, every one taken can increase the lifespan of at least 10 years, and there are all kinds of incredible strangeness. Celestial dragons, as a nobleman in the world, lacks nothing, the only thing they fear is death. With such a miraculous drug that can increase life expectancy, celestial dragons is ecstatic and eager to buy it like a eagle. And, because of the selfish nature of celestial dragons, they don't want the elixir to be shared by more people. Therefore, the information of this medicine has only been circulated among celestial dragons, and has not been leaked. As for how to buy elixir, you can only go to the greedy guy in Roswad and spend 500 million Baileys to buy one. Although many celestial dragons were very annoyed that Roswad didn't take out all such good things, but had to buy them with money. But thinking of only 500 million Baileys, compared with the magic of the elixir, it is not worth mentioning, these celestial dragons suppressed the irritation in their hearts again. For ordinary people, it is undoubtedly an astronomical 500 million Baileys. In the eyes of celestial dragons 11, it is just a number. Want money? It's not easy, just let the people below pay more tribute to the heavenly gold. Then, an order came from Mariajoy. The world government requires all franchising countries and dependent countries to provide heavenly gold 3 times more than before. This order immediately caused an uproar in the world. You know, most countries in the world are very poor. Just to pay the amount of heavenly gold as before, the people have to live frugally and eat a meal and be hungry. And now, it has to be increased to 3 times the amount. This is killing them. People were angry. Many people could no longer stand the oppression of celestial dragons, they stood up and resisted. But soon, he was suppressed by the royal family of his country. Those royal families don't want to be unlucky together by stupid citizens, they know very well that the power of celestial dragons is something they can't afford to provoke. As for a large-scale rebellion that cannot even be suppressed by the royal family, the world government will immediately send Marine. Under the powerful force of several Marine vice-admiral, no matter how big the rebellion was, it was quickly suppressed. Under the threat of death, the worldwide rebellion finally gradually decreased. However, the people who can only linger, bury their hatred for celestial dragons, hatred for world government, and hatred for Marine, the minion of celestial dragons, deeply buried in their hearts. And with the passage of time, it accumulates deeper and deeper. Until it reaches the apex of a certain limit, even the threat of death, even the fear of shattered bones. Advertisement. I am afraid, I can no longer suppress this monstrous hatred. Marine headquarters. Within half a month, the Marshal Sengoku seemed to have grown older than before. The black hair on both sides of him is now pale. The bad influence of Punk Hazard's time has not been completely eliminated. Recently, celestial dragons unexpectedly claimed so much heavenly gold. Recently, Sengoku just quelled the rebellion of various countries, and the growing dissatisfaction with celestial dragons within Marine, it has troubled the brain. In fact, these alone, with Sengoku's wrist and the prestige in Marine, can still handle it. But the only thing that made Sengoku powerless, even chilling at the thought of it, and even a deep fear that people had never had before, was the hatred that people hid in their hearts. With Sengoku's wisdom, of course, it can be seen that the rebellion is only superficially suppressed, and as long as the root cause of the rebellion is still there. In the future, there will be more unimaginable chaos that is larger and larger than now. That group of vampire-like celestial dragons, what do they want to do? In the marshal's office, Garp patted the table and shouted angrily at Sengoku. Garp's fist was tightly clenched, and his gray beard trembled. Because of celestial dragon's unscrupulous money collection, his hometown of Windmill Village was also affected. The life of the villagers was worse than before. This is still because he is sheltered by the Marine hero. Garp heard that in other parts of the Goa kingdom, even people in the entire village were starved to death. Faced with the questioning of Garp, his comrade in arms for decades, Sengoku's old face became darker. The resourceful general, which was considered foolproof in the past, seems to have been wiped out in this short period of time. Sengoku said with a hoarse voice. Garp, calm down. Calm down. How to calm down the old man? Garp's eyes were bloodshot. You know, because of the shit command of celestial dragons, how many people have died in the world in the past half-month? How many people died? Sengoku, as Marshal Marine, could not know. He gets relevant information from all over the world every day, and the number in the death column is simply shocking. But Sengoku has nothing to do. Facing celestial dragons' greed and aggressiveness, even if he is Marshal Marine, even if he is the world's top powerhouse, what can he do? Seeing that Sengoku was just silent, Garp finally couldn't bear it. He turned around abruptly and said fiercely. Since you can't answer, the old man will go to 5 elders and ask for clarity. Advertisement. Hearing this, Sengoku was shocked. He quickly stood up, stepped forward and held Garp, and shouted. Garp, don't forget who you are, let alone do stupid things. North Blue. After several days of rushing, the big seastone ship departing from Dressrosa is already not far from the kingdom of Germa. On the deck of the ship, an intellectual and elegant beautiful woman is leaning on the railing. A breeze hit, blowing the beautiful long hair of the woman, the delicate and shiny skin, under the shining of the sun and the sea, glowing colors. It looks so beautiful as a painting in a dream. However, the woman's stunning face now carries a touch of sorrow. Unexpectedly, the outside world has actually become like this during my stay in Dressrosa these days. The woman is Robin. On the way to North Blue, Robin found that the lives of 670 people in the countries along the road were worse than before. Because of the sudden increase of the heavenly gold to 3 times, many small countries that were already poor have fallen into wars and famines, and countless people have died as a result, just like hell. Da. Behind him, suddenly there was the sound of footsteps. Robin knew who was here without even thinking about it. The sad look on her face immediately changed to a gentle and submissive smile that was rarely seen on her. Robin actively leaned into the arms of the man behind him. Dover held the beauty's slender waist, and he was also a little surprised. Robin, who is always weird and has his own ideas, has never been so docile and proactive. What's wrong? The man's low and gentle voice came. Robin buried his face tightly on the man's chest and took a deep breath. After a long time, he said softly. This world is becoming more and more like a hell. Only by your side can I feel at ease. Dover was taken aback for a moment, and then he quickly reacted. It should be the tragedy of those countries that aroused Robin's feelings along the way. Dover gently stroked the beautiful and supple hair of the woman in his arms, but his eyes gradually deepened. In this increasingly turbulent world, there are countless ambitions such as Germa who want to take advantage of the chaos. And there is a big hand that no one notices, covering the sky, but already quietly enclosing the entire world. How long can the stupid celestial dragons who dream of longevity, and even the 4 emperors and marines who are still solemn, stand on the top? Chapter 93 Arriving in Germa, the shock of the Vinsmoke clan. Advertisement. Aokiji has heard about celestial dragons increasing heavenly gold. But I didn't expect it to increase to 3 times as much as before. Originally, when Aokiji finally got the news from Dover, he immediately set off to find the man. He wants to confirm, Nicole. Robin, the woman he had let go of a horse, was it really in Dover's hands? Unexpectedly, because the world's turmoil has become more violent, not only the people at the bottom rebel, but some ambitious big pirates also want to take advantage of the chaos to attack a country and claim it for themselves. Among them, the most sensational and most influential is that Gecko Moria, one of 7 warlords of the sea, actually took advantage of a small civil disorder and turned everyone up and down in the country into zombies. As a result, the world has become a mess. Aokiji solved several waves of pirates along the way, and at the same time frowned at the chaos of the world. By the time he arrived in North Blue, it was already a few days later. Kingdom of Germa. Today, there are lanterns and colorful decorations and grand decorations. Nearly 10,000 German soldiers were neatly arranged in a row. Almost all of them were carved out of the same mold, with a dull look, without any emotion or pain, and only obeyed the orders of the Vinsmoke family. Tens of thousands of people stood there silently, giving people a heavy sense of oppression, but there was also a very cold and weird atmosphere. After all, these soldiers cannot be regarded as real human beings to some extent. But for Vinsmoke, Judge, these are his most proud productions. He wants to use these works to let the upcoming man see the strength of his Germa kingdom, so as to lay the foundation for the alliance between the 2 sides. At this moment, Judge is taking a few sons, as well as the very beautiful daughter Reiju dressed up today, plus the tens of thousands of soldiers, at the entrance of the kingdom of Germa, waiting. And it didn't take long. On the sea level in the distance, a huge luxury ship with a dark bottom sailed. Coming. Judge clenched his fists tightly, unable to hide his excitement. Aside, the eldest son IG stared at the dark color at the bottom of the ship, and said. It's worthy of being the legendary dark middleman Joker, and even the government's unique seastone technology as a master. The seastone craft, originally only Wano-kuni possessed, but because Wano-kuni was closed to the country, few outsiders knew about it. And only the seastone weapon that the government has used and purchased from Wano-kuni through Dover, so many outsiders think that the seastone technology is only available to the government. Well, but this kind of technology is not enough. Our Derma's technology is also top-notch. The green-clad Yuji said with a smile. I hope that man really has the legendary strength, otherwise the so-called alliance will be meaningless. Although Joker has a great reputation in the earth and the world, it has only recently emerged. It is normal for someone in the Vinsmoke clan to have doubts about Dover's strength. Advertisement. Yuji suddenly said again, My father, why don't you let me go out for an interview? If that person is really a silver gun candle head, we don't need to live with Reiju. Upon hearing this, the excitement in Judge's heart was somewhat calmed down. Although he has long since verified the strength and influence of Joker, it may even be stronger than the rumors. But after all, I haven't seen it with my own eyes. It's a good idea to let Yuji try it out. Therefore, Judge did not object. Yuji immediately punched his fist confidently. Having put on the battle uniform, he thought that even if he was not that Joker's opponent, he would definitely surprise the opponent with his strength. On the other side, in a pink dress, Reiju, who is as beautiful as a butterfly, stands upright with a pair of beautiful and smooth long legs, watching Yuji and his father's careful thoughts coldly. Although Joker, who had never seen him before, was considered his nominal fiancé, Reiju didn't care about him at all. If his person loses to Yuji later, it proves that his reputation is completely vain. His father, Judge, will probably turn his face immediately and drive him out. In that way, Reiju can continue to be her Princess Vinsmoke by herself, and there is no need to take that move. And if that person is really as powerful as the legend, then he cannot escape the fate of marriage with him. Reiju had planned for a long time, and completely broke with Vinsmoke, only to die. When everyone's mind is turning, the Seastone ship is already approaching. Yuji grinned and was about to step forward, and fought with the legendary Joker. Judge said nothing. IG and Niji folded their arms around their chests, looking like they were watching the show. Reiju looked cold. At the next moment, the figure of a man and a woman appeared on the ship at the same time. The woman is graceful, she seems to be a bit more beautiful than Reiju. Such stunning beauties, if in normal times, even Germa with no emotions, will be attracted involuntarily. However, at the moment, the attention of everyone present could not be distracted or deviated at all. Because, at the moment the man appeared, an indescribable sense of oppression, like an invisible big hand, tightly slapped everyone's hearts. What's the matter? My heart seems to have stopped suddenly just now. Advertisement. Me too. Even if the soldiers of Germa had no emotions, they couldn't help feeling horrified at this moment. At the same time, Yuji took half of his steps and stopped. The original smile on his face seemed to freeze, and drops of cold sweat ooze out behind his back. IG and Niji also put down their arms around their chests, their expressions suddenly became extremely solemn, and there was even a hint of pain. Judge's face changed even more, and he turned on the battle suit directly. And Reiju, who looked indifferent and already heartbroken, suddenly opened her beautiful eyes, revealing an incredible look. Look at the stalwart figure on the ship. It turned out that unlike the sudden cardiac arrest of ordinary combatants in Germa, the core personnel of the Vinsmoke family suddenly seemed to be weighed down by a huge mountain of hundreds of meters. And the source of this huge pressure, even if it is Yuji, who is always arrogant and stupid, knows that it is definitely caused by the man on the ship. Quote. Is this the legendary Joker? It is so terrible. Yuji was shocked and embarrassed. Just now, what he wanted to challenge the other party still echoed in his ears. But right now, he can't even lift his feet halfway down, neither can he fall nor take it back. Because he was so shocked by Dover's hockey that he couldn't control his body for a while. Dover glanced faintly at the people in front of Germa, and placed such a big battle at Judge Wang Zhao's, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but evoke a sneered arc. Especially, when he caught a glimpse of Yuji's half-lifted foot, he directly guessed what Judge and others had planned just now. Dover's sneer was even worse. He stood with his hand in his hand, like a god above the nine heavens, looking down on Judge, who tried to use his strength to rule North Blue's ambition and family. You are Vinsmoke Judge, right? Buddha Xiaohei. Dover let out a deep laugh that seemed to come from the abyss. I heard that you want to marry me, I can give you this opportunity. At the same time as the voice came out, the pressure on Judge and the others also increased a bit. Judge's face turned green and he wanted to say something. But under the heavy pressure of the other party from nowhere, they couldn't even squeeze out the strength to speak, and could only support it hard. And Dover's next words made Judge feel more humiliated than ever before. As long as you can walk in front of me, I will give you a chance to sit on an equal footing with me, and I will help you capture North Blue. How? Vinsmoke Judge. Chapter 94 Vinsmoke, a race without emotion. Advertisement. What are you talking about, Joker? Judge could hardly believe what he heard. Under his feet, a light of electromagnetic pattern lit up, and the battle suit on his body was also faintly glowing, which made Judge finally have the strength to speak. Judge stared at the man not far away in anger, his face pale. As soon as the opponent came up, he used that inexplicable coercive aura to suppress everyone in his Germa kingdom, almost unable to lift their heads. Where is the slightest gesture of coming to form an alliance and marriage? What made Judge even more unbearable was that the other party was so arrogant that as long as he walked to the other side, he agreed to form an alliance with him. This is blatant contempt and humiliation. Judge urged the battle suit to a certain extent, and the electromagnetic light under his feet became more and more dazzling. He stood up straight, angrily like a lion being forced to a corner. Joker, answer me, were you joking just now? Since receiving the news that Dover is coming to North Blue, Judge has been in ecstasy for the past few days. As long as he can marry and form an alliance with Joker, his Judge's strength can suddenly skyrocket to several levels, and the dream of ruling North Blue is no longer just a luxury. Therefore, when Dover said the humiliating words, Judge seemed to fall from heaven to hell in an instant. Even Judge didn't want to believe what he had just heard, and wanted to confirm it again. Ha ha ha. Dover smiled tauntingly. 673 He was late looking at a bug. Judge. Human ambition is the biggest poison to blind one's eyes. Vinsmoke Judge, don't you understand? It was like an ultimate cold wind blowing into the hearts of everyone in the kingdom of Germa. However, only Judge was chilled, and Ultimate's anger. Because, including several of Judge's sons and even tens of thousands of Germa soldiers, although their bodies are shaking involuntarily, their hearts are not afraid or angry at all. Of course, except for Lemay. It's just that Reiju is not angry, she is just shocked, surprised, and a little bit funny. She laughed at her self-righteous father who ignored everything and only had ambitions. She was so satisfied that she wanted to ally with each other, and even gave her daughter out as a tool. In exchange, it was the sneer of the other side's disdain. Ah, Joker, you betrayed me. Judge growled like a beast. His eyes flushed suddenly, and his muscles convulsed. The battle uniform on his body was also urged to ultimate by him in an instant. IG, Niji, Yuji, and Reiju, inspire your combat uniforms, let this man who betrayed us taste the taste of blood. Judge roared wildly, and the electromagnetic light under his feet flickered extremely fast, and his body rose into the air under the pressure of Dover. Advertisement. At the same moment, although his three sons were still horrified by B-Beg, Dover, the terrible and mammoth might. But hearing Judge's order, the body was like being pressed against a certain mechanism, and it moved subconsciously. Only Reiju, standing still, did not move. Reiju, who still retains emotions, unlike her three younger brothers, cannot resist his father's orders. Reiju has her own thoughts, she has long been heartbroken, she doesn't want to help her father at all. She even thought that if the man was really strong enough, it would be better to be able to completely wipe out the monster country of Germa with her. Dover glanced at Reiju, who didn't seem to care about Germa's life or death, and turned his gaze to Judge and his son who wanted to attack him together. To his side, Robin, who was holding Dover's arm, looked curiously at Germa's battle uniform. Facing the terrifying offensive of Judge and his son, her pretty faces had no worries at all. Robin said quietly, "This is the first time I have seen this kind of clothes." Seeing a woman, Judge was even more annoyed when he didn't seem to put their Germa in his eyes. His battle uniform had already run to its limit, and the strong electromagnetic power carried his body, rushing towards Dover at extreme speed. The three sons of Ig, Niji, and Yuji also used their own unique abilities to rise up against the pressure. Judge rushed to the front, and the third son was behind, like an invincible spear, rushing to Dover in the blink of an eye. When Dover saw this, he felt Robin's graceful body with one hand, and gently played with the other hand, with a hint of evil. The battle uniforms of the Vinsmoke clan are really interesting. Especially women's battle uniforms. If you like, you can try them out in the future. Robin listened, and immediately glanced at Reiju's attire while standing still. Such a costume, if it were also a combat uniform, once transformed, I am afraid it would be quite fragrant. Robin couldn't help but glanced at the man beside him. He had a certain understanding of Germa's female combat uniforms, and maybe he was on the idea of Princess Germa early on. However, Robin didn't feel any uncomfortable feeling in her heart. She knew that the man beside her could not be owned by herself. She would not be jealous with other women. Even if she had urged her before, there were too many beauties around Dover. When she left Dressrosa, Sugar and other girls, and even told her to be careful of other vixens harassing Dover, Robin just laughed. Robin is just Robin, she just needs to know that she loves this man deeply, that's enough. When the two people talked casually, when Judge was 4 people and several meters away from Dover, Jay ran. The figure of the 4 of them rushing forward suddenly stopped. The figure of the 4 people stopped in midair and could no longer move. Even though Reiju didn't care about Germa's life and death, she couldn't help but be shocked by this strange scene at this time. And then, an even more shocking scene happened. I saw that the man named Joker moved his fingers lightly, and the 3 of Ig, Niji, and Yuji actually took up their weapons and stabbed his father Judge in the back. Advertisement. What's the matter? I can't move it. The body seemed to be bound by an invisible force, and Judge was inexplicably frightened. But before he had time to struggle desperately, he found out in anger that the sons who had been obedient to his words, dared to take a weapon against him. Stop, you 3 bastards. However, the 3 sons who were unable to resist his orders, as if they hadn't heard them, still attacked Judge. Judge finally felt a little panic. He wanted to dodge, but he couldn't move at all. Can only watch, the attack of the 3 sons fell on him. What? Judge was hit hard without resistance and couldn't help but let out a scream, but his body was no longer controlled, and he fell into the sea with a plop. We just beat my father. Ig, Niji, and Yuji, who couldn't control their movements at all, said in surprise. Ig said without any emotion. This is no way, we are also involuntarily now. Niji nodded in agreement. Yuji also looked helpless. The 3 sons didn't show any sentimental or angry expressions about the behavior of attacking Judge just now. Because they never had that kind of emotion. Seeing this scene, Reiju, who had been silent, finally sighed. Although she was very disappointed with her father Judge, she wished that Germa disappeared from this world. But when he saw Judge being shot down to the sea by his 3 sons and sons who had no feelings, Reiju still couldn't bear it. She jumped into the sea and rescued Judge, who was seriously injured and unconscious. Robin looked indifferent when seeing the 3 sons of Ig behave like that. Instead, his daughter Reiju, who was used as a marriage tool, saved Judge and was finally a little surprised. How come they are not a family? Family. Dover smiled in a low voice of unknown meaning, his eyes deep. Xiao Xiao, whether they can be called humans, it's still a matter of 2 things. Robin was shocked, and suddenly remembered the blood factor that Dover had mentioned to her a few days ago. Could it be that all 3 of Judge's sons have been modified by him with descent factors? No wonder they attacked their father without emotional fluctuations. It's a family of monsters. Robin suddenly looked at the wet woman named Dongju who rescued Judge with some sympathy. Chapter 95 Parasite String Falling from the Sky, Reiju's Throbbing. Advertisement. Vinsmoke, Judge, a guy with only ambition left. The so-called wife, children, and subordinates are all tools he uses to realize his ambitions. He established the kingdom of Germa, the clone army, and he transformed his sons into monsters with no emotions. But now, Judge was almost killed by the 3rd son, but the 3rd son still looks indifferent. Reiju treated Judge briefly, and looked at Judge lying on the ground with beautiful eyes. The former ruthless father became a weak and weak-old man in a flash. Judge coughed out a large mouthful of seawater and woke up. The pain in his body made Judge quickly remember what had happened. Ig, Niji, Yuji, you 3 bastards, what were you doing just now? Judge is like an angry lion, struggling to sit up, the muscles on his face are fierce. After being questioned by Judge, the 3 of Ig just shrugged and said. Excuse me, my father, we didn't mean it just now. What's more, didn't you teach us before that we don't need to be afraid of death, but we only need to fight bravely? You just got this little injury, it's nothing well. The words that the 3rd child didn't care about, like a heavy hammer, hit Judge's heart hard. Judge couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of old blood, stretched out his fingers, pointed at Ig and 3 people tremblingly, and their voices trembled. Beast. You 3 beasts. Facing Judge's scolding, Yuji grinned and said, "We are a beast, aren't you an old beast?" Judge heard it, his eyes turned black for a while, and he tilted his head back, almost to death. Shuju quickly supported Judge, with a sad expression on his face. This is the so-called Vinsmoke clan, who only has victory and glory first. On the Seastone ship, even Robin, who has been in the Dark World for more than 10 years, has never seen such a family without any emotion at all. She couldn't help thinking of her childhood and the nightmare experience targeted by the whole world. Arm couldn't help but hug the arm of the man beside her tightly. At this time, Reiju also looked at the man beside Robin. At this moment, she already understood that the man named Joker, even the entire Germa, was not the opponent's little finger. My father wanted to use himself and form an alliance with each other earlier, it was too naive. Reiju, who has learned to disguise his emotions and deceive Judge and others since birth, is very smart. How the current situation will develop is something that only the man can never be absolutely sure of. Advertisement. Reiju looked at Dover, although the hockey inadvertently radiated from her body was shocking. But Reiju, who has no desire to survive, still has a calm tone. You can't come to Germa for the so-called marriage. If it is for revenge, you can let Germa disappear in this world now. Reiju, who is unlovable, is full of sorrow for Germa, who is full of monsters. She thought, perhaps the best result would be to let that man remove Germa completely. Dover's faint gaze swept over the pink woman squatting on the ground, like a butterfly. Because he just jumped into the water to save Judge, Reiju's body was wet at this time, and the battle suit was tightly attached to his body, and the outline of the curve was extremely moving. Buddha, the destruction of Germa is just such a small matter, I won't come personally. The corner of Dover's mouth showed a hint of playfulness and profoundness, but his eyes turned to the inside of the Germa kingdom, where there were tens of thousands of soldiers neatly lined up. Reiju followed Dover's gaze and was taken aback. The opponent didn't put Germa's strength in his eyes at all, so how could he fancy these combatants? Although these fighters were nurtured by their father Jaji, they are all young and middle-aged in their 20s. But what is this kind of combat power for that man? What's more, these combatants are also transformed by Judge, who only listened to Judge's orders. But the next moment, Reiju's doubts were solved. I saw that countless small thread-like things suddenly fell from the sky in dense clusters. Just like steel needles, they pierced into the body of the thousands of fighters in Germa. Then, an unbelievable scene happened in front of Shuju. Thump. There was a neat sound of knees colliding with the ground. Tens of thousands of Germa combatants who would only listen to Judge's orders were actually the men on the ship at the same time and bowed down. No, impossible, absolutely impossible, that's Laozi's most loyal soldier. At this time, Judge finally came to his heart from the anger he had just now, and he was relieved. But before he could catch his breath, he saw another scene that made him almost faint. In the past few minutes, the king of the Germa kingdom, Vinsmoke Judge, who originally wanted to unify North Blue and realize his ambition, became a lonely man at this moment. For flowers, several sons betrayed him, and even Judge's last reliance, the soldiers he copied from the blood factor, actually bowed down to that man. Suddenly, Judge seemed to be tens of years old. Advertisement. All his ambitions, all his reliance, were wiped out with a wave of the man's hand. What kind of control is this? It actually overshadows the father's descent factor. Reiju couldn't believe it. Suddenly, she realized that the three of Iji had just been controlled and manipulated by this kind of control method. A burst of invisible but almost respiteful power rushed toward the face. Reiju looked at the man in horror, who couldn't see the speed at all, and was in front of her. The wet body trembled slightly that could not be forced. Although she is not afraid of death, she is afraid of being controlled. Because, since I was a child, I have seen my father use the blood factor to control his children and control everyone in the kingdom of Germa, becoming a puppet manipulated by others at will, and he is Reiju's biggest dream monster. Instead of that, she would rather die. Just when Reiju decided to commit suicide immediately, not to let that person have the opportunity to manipulate him. A slender finger suddenly provoked her sharp and smooth chin. Reiju raised her head involuntarily, and faced the black eyes that were deep in the darkness, which flashed into the depths of her heart for an instant. Shuju's heart trembled like a tremor, and suddenly he forgot to commit suicide. Immediately, the man's deep and strange voice filled her ears. Woman, take me to the place where you made clones in Germa. Then, the finger left. Reiju still looked up at Yuyan, a little dazed. After a long time, she reacted, and once again saw the handsome and evil face of the man in front of her. Her heart jumped, but she stood up and said, I will take you over. Turning around and leading the way, no one noticed that a red star like a drop of blood surged on Reiju's pretty face. With great effort, Reiju finally suppressed the blush. She couldn't help but throbbed and thought, just now, what's wrong with me? I just took a clear look at that man's eyes, and I did. Reiju had to admit that the look in the man's eyes was like a mysterious Uzumaki, and his mind fell deeply in just one glance. And his voice seemed to possess some kind of magic power that people couldn't refuse. Reiju didn't want to follow Dover's orders, but his body was clearly not controlled, but he seemed to be more obedient and spontaneously leading the way than controlled. Individual. Chapter 96 Layout North Blue, Aokiji arrives. Advertisement. Under the guidance of Reiju, Dover found the real face room of the Vinsmoke clan. There lurks the extremely secret technology about descent factor that Judge and Vegapunk developed together. Dover stared at the clones in the incubation tank. He actually came to Germa for two purposes. One is the lineage factor technology of the Vinsmoke family. Now on Sky Island, Guy is spreading the smile fruit he is sweating profusely, actually using blood factor technology. Although Guy can make smiles independently, the efficiency of making smiles is too low, the success rate is not high, and the fruits produced, if people do not have the ability to eat them, the side effects are not small. In the original work, the only smile on the faces of the civilians of Wano-Kuni was because they had eaten defective products containing failed smiles. And now that he knew that Germa also possesses blood factor technology, Dover thought, perhaps adding the two together can, 673, to speed up smiles production efficiency and success rate. The second purpose of coming to Germa is the clones outside and in front of you. Although these clones are like ants in front of Dover, they are actually much better than a normal adult. Moreover, they have no emotions, are not afraid of death, and are absolutely loyal under the control of Parasite String. It is really suitable to be used as a test product for tasting the smile fruit. With these thoughts in mind, Dover, who has achieved his goal, does not need to stay in North Blue. Just before leaving, he glanced at the beautiful woman with proud curvy and butterfly-like curves. This woman was photographed by his King Haki, and she obeyed his orders involuntarily. At this time, she seemed to have recovered a bit, and Chao's face was a little pale. Dover implicitly left a sentence. Since there is still concern in my heart, there is no need to die early. From now on, Germa's development in North Blue is up to you, Vinsmoke, Reiju. As soon as the voice fell, Dover took Robin's slender waist and disappeared in place. Shuju was in a daze. She looked at the back of the man full of strange magic, opened her pink lips slightly, wanted to say something, but stopped. It's just my mind, but it's completely messed up. Did he know that I still have a younger brother? Germa's development in North Blue. Does this man also want to get involved in North Blue? Doubts linger in his heart. Reiju bit her pink lower lip slightly, her beautiful eyes are strangely complex. Dover took Vinsmoke Judge and hundreds of clones of Germa to Sky Island and gave them to Guy. Advertisement. Judge lost everything, and his heart was ashamed. But when he heard that Dover also intends to unify North Blue, and that he left Germa's army and his daughter Reiju in North Blue, hope and ambition rekindled in his old eyes. Although, his current life and death are all in the hands of the other party. But unifying North Blue has long been Judge's obsession. To this end, he sacrificed his wife, children, and subordinates at all costs. Therefore, as long as they can unify North Blue, even if the leader is not himself, Judge can hardly conceal his excitement. At the moment, his person cheered up a lot in an instant, and he was in the same smell as Guy, the villain, and excitedly began to study and improve the art of artificial devil fruit. That night, Dover descended from the sky and came to the kingdom of Osno. The former three kingdoms of Protons, Osno, and Katya are now centered on the Osno kingdom, and the honey woman from Viola has built a strong barrier in front of Dressrosa. Viola relied on the ability to stare at the fruit, and repeatedly found the trace of the enemy thousands of miles away. As a result, many guys who tried to retaliate against Dover were wiped out by the cadres of the Donquixote family before they saw Dressrosa's shadow. For Viola to make such a great achievement, Dover would naturally reward the honey woman. However, when Dover arrived at Osno Palace, when Viola saw him, he didn't jump into his arms for the first time, and Chao Lian ran forward anxiously. Dover, you are finally back. What happened? Dover was a little surprised. With the strength of Dressrosa today, unless a Four Emperors class powerhouse comes personally, even if he is not there, everyone in the family will be able to face it. One day ago, Marine Admiral Aokiji, in the sea 1,000 miles away, couldn't go away. Viola said shortly. As soon as his voice fell, Robin's expression beside Dover changed drastically. Robin's original pair of wonderful eyes and spirit pupils now contained a deep fear, as if he was thinking of something extremely terrible. Hearing the name of Aokiji, Dover also raised his eyebrows. Viola continued. Torapal and other top cadres of the family originally wanted to go to the meeting with Qingwei together, but Monet stopped them. Dover nodded slightly, and Monet was right. It should be noted that Aokiji is Marine Admiral, and its own strength stands at the top of the world. Although the three of Torapal have made great progress under the blessing of the system, whether they can beat Qingshang is still a very small matter. More importantly, once Torapal and others fight Aokiji, no matter what the result is, Dressrosa and Marine are completely torn apart, which is not in line with Dover's plan. Advertisement. And if you really want to conflict with Aokiji, you must also leave him forever. In this way, no evidence will be left. Dover, what should we do? Viola asked worriedly. Aokiji is Marine Admiral after all. It is very difficult. Although she believes in her man without reservation, she is still a little worried. Dover's eyes flickered, but he smiled faintly, and said, "It's okay. Since it's here, let's go to the meeting." After that, Dover turned and walked outside. Suddenly, the sleeve of the shirt was pulled, but Robin did it. Robin's pretty face was a little pale, apparently Aokiji's arrival gave her a lot of shock. She stood on her toes, her red lips lightly reported, and she pressed a light mark on the man's face, and whispered. Marine Admiral Aokiji, once in O'Hara's Buster Call, let me go. For so many years, in fact, I also know that he has been watching me secretly. After speaking, he let go of Dover's sleeve. Dover nodded slightly, did not say much, but his figure swept away and flew straight to the sky. Robin looked up at the man's stalwart back, stood there for a while, startled. Although it is night, but the moonlight was bright enough, plus the observation haki of Dover, who fell thousands of miles away and found Aokiji lying on a deserted island, looking lazily at the stars. Duo 4.6 stands above the starry sky, standing with his hands behind. If other admiral or marine executives came this time, he said that he must use thunder tactics to kill them. But if only Aokiji alone. Dover's eyes couldn't help becoming as deep as the night sky. He knew that Aokiji was not a person who insisted on justice. On the contrary, although he is in Marine, he does not seem to agree with Marine's justice, as can be seen from Aokiji's release of Robin more than 10 years ago. Of course, Aokiji doesn't trust the justice of the pirates even more. He is a man who upholds his own justice. More accurately, he is like a man looking for true justice. Aokiji joined Marine in search of justice. In the original book, the battle for the position of the marshal failed, and Blackbeard has something to do with it, but also to find justice. Such a strong man who is not firm in reality and standing on the side of the government may have something Dover can use in the future. Chapter 97 In the violent collision, the meteorite from the outside world has a violent mouth on the ice. Advertisement. Aokiji one day ago stopped on this deserted island and did not go in the direction of Dressrosa. Because he vaguely felt that his whereabouts seemed to be being watched by a certain pair of eyes all the time. A certain kind of special ability. Aokiji frowned and thought for a while, before dispelling the idea of going to Dressrosa. Because since the other party was so wary of him, he would be a little bit ignorant if he went forward rashly. Moreover, conflicts are likely to occur, which is not what Aokiji wants. After all, there is still Shichibukai's sight. As Marine Admiral, he went to cause trouble for no reason. So, Aokiji waited on this deserted island. He believed that heavenly Yaksha Doflamingo would definitely come to him. Since he dared to bombard Mr. Garp and Suru's staff with thunderstorms, Aokiji knew that the opponent was not an ordinary Shichibukai, and would not shrink from coming because he was Marine Admiral. Well, anyway, let's get some sleep. After looking at the stars, Aokiji became sleepy and wanted to sleep on the floor. However, a strong chill suddenly surged into his heart. Aokiji's face changed, and he stood up abruptly, with an unprecedented calmness and tightness toward the night sky far away. There, it was so dark that even moonlight and starlight could not cover it. However, Aokiji can clearly feel that there is a great danger that even he feels, and it is flying at him from the depths of the dark night sky. That is, it didn't take long. Aokiji's eyes suddenly lit up with an ultimate light, and at an incredible speed, it quickly grew from small to large. I saw that the darkness in the dark night sky that was originally bottomless, seemed to be swept away by a pair of big hands wrapped in flames. The darkness in the night sky faded quickly, transforming into a fiery red light. The dazzling light can even be seen by Robin and Viola thousands of miles away. It's Dover. Dover made that light. Viola has been watching her man's actions with clairvoyance. When seeing Dover's gestures, he created such a magnificent celestial phenomenon that the powerful Marine Admiral had a shocked expression on his face. Viola couldn't help but screamed with joy, and took Robin's arm. Although the two women met very few times, because of the same intelligence, they quickly became very good girlfriends. Advertisement. At this moment, the smooth jade arms of the two women were intertwined, which made people worry about it. I was afraid that they would slip out as long as they exerted a little force. Robin leaned on his pretty face and looked at the brilliant light of the night sky. The little haze that had just been raised in his heart because of Aokiji also disappeared at this time. It's so beautiful, Robin whispered. In Aokiji's eyes, the light that made the two women feel extremely beautiful and colorful is a fatal crisis. It turned out to be a meteorite. Aokiji finally saw it clearly. The behemoth that illuminates the entire night sky is entwined with flames, and emits ultimate light. It turned out to be a meteorite from outside the sky. Mr. Garp and them, the last time they experienced a thunderstorm. And me, it was a meteorite. Heavenly Yaksha, how many hidden means do you have? To create such a huge flame meteorite, apart from that heavenly Yaksha, Aokiji couldn't think of anyone else. At the same time, he also felt shocked and incomprehensible with Dover's endless powerful attacks. The other party is obviously just Paramesh's string fruit ability. Aokiji's curiosity about Dover became more intense. At the same time, the inner fear has also risen to a height comparable to the four emperors. But heavenly Yaksha, since you want to greet guests in this way, then I have no choice but to accompany you. Aokiji yelled at the sky. Immediately, the infinitely cold icy breath exploded from him. The icy breath spread extremely fast. Just a few breaths, the entire desert island was covered with a layer of frost. Aokiji just let out a breath. The moisture in the air in front of him immediately condensed into ice and fell. Top powerhouses like Aokiji have already developed the capabilities of frozen fruit to the extreme. Nothing can be frozen wherever you go. Ice cubes. Facing the huge meteorite that was getting closer and closer, Aokiji stretched out his arms, and the cold air that was several times colder than the surrounding icy air gathered on his arm. In the next second, Aokiji's arms condensed into ice, and quickly extended outwards, and instantly turned into a huge ice bird, facing the flame meteorite that fell from the sky. Urgent mouth. The huge ice bird is just one of Aokiji's big tricks. It's just that the ice cube in front of you, the violent mouth, is several times larger than the confrontation ace in the original book. I saw it. Advertisement. In that midair, although the huge flame meteorite is slightly inferior to the size, the more condensed ice bird collided. This is a contest between flames and ice. This is a duel between the outer meteorite and ultimate ice. The two sides were intolerant of water and fire, and as soon as they met, they fought fiercely. The extremely violent air wave, from the center of the collision, continued to spread to the surroundings. The surrounding sea roared as if it couldn't bear it, and the desert island at Aokiji's feet seemed to have collapsed. Such a violent and terrifying scene lasted for several minutes. The sea is still tossing, and half of the deserted island has collapsed. Allah, this is a bit too much, heavenly Yaksha. Aokiji town said in a dense voice where the fire and ice, meteorites and violent beaks were about to disappear. Buddha howl, 673. In the void where ice and fire meet, a tall and gloomy figure of Tao walked out. The moment he appeared, the sea that had been tumbling for a long time fell silent for an instant, and it seemed that even the sea was terrified, the figure on the void. The figure, not Dover, who is it? Dover and Aokiji stared at each other with solemn eyes and let out a meaningful laugh. It's just a meeting ceremony. After all, we haven't seen each other for many years, Kuzan. The talented flame meteorite was exactly a meeting gift given to Aokiji from outside the sky by Dover using alloy wire. Aokiji let out a cold breath. After many years, I saw this man again, but this man is no longer the Shichibukai he remembered. The original Doflamingo, of course, is not weak, but it will never have such power. That kind of power can even silence the sea, and even make him feel a sense of oppression in Aokiji. It is indeed a heavy meeting ceremony. Doflamingo, you are no longer the Shichibukai in my mind. Aokiji calmly said, slowly. However, no matter why your strength has grown to such a level, there is only one purpose for me to come here. At this point, Aokiji's eyes became sharp, and he stared at Dover like a knife. That woman, in your hands, heavenly Yaksha. Chapter 98 What is Justice? The final preparation. Advertisement. Although Aokiji didn't name him by name, the two people present knew who that woman was referring to. When he was only 8 years old, he was offered a reward of 79 million baileys by the world government, and he was called the son of the devil by the world. If we say that the existence and power of the four emperors poses a great threat to the world government. But Robin, the woman who seems to be far less powerful than the four emperors, has the ability to shake the foundation of the world government. Before the Kazuki clan lost the ability to read historical texts and listen to the sound of all things, before they appeared, Robin was undoubtedly the only person in this world who could unlock the secret of 100 years of blankness. Such a threat to a woman who was even greater than the four emperors, it is no wonder that the world government will chase them down to the end. Even Marine Admiral like Aokiji will always pay attention to Robin's movements for more than 10 years. Ha ha ha. Facing Aokiji's stern questioning, Dover laughed softly and said playfully. So what? Not, so what, Kuzan, since you are so concerned about that woman, why did you let off the so-called son of the devil in Ohara? Dover asked indifferently, making Aokiji's fierce momentum stagnant. Back then, if Aokiji decisively took a ruthless hand, then the biggest threat to the world government would disappear. However, Aokiji did not do so. On the one hand, he was angry because Akainu bombarded Ohara's escape boat, and he was unavoidable to sympathize and apologize to the 8-year-old Robin. On the other hand, only Aokiji knew it. At that time, he actually had doubts about the justice of the world government. This suspicion continues to this day. Even, due to the more and more dark side of the government, especially the recent celestial dragon's exploitation of the world, Aokiji's suspicion has long been unknowingly expanded to a great extent. However, of course, Aokiji would not tell the man in front of him who made him intuitive and extremely dangerous. I had my reasons for letting that woman go. But no matter what, I can't let Nicole Robin fall into the hands of you who represents evil, Joker. Aokiji actually called out Dover's code name in the dark world. However, when the name of Joker was spoken from Aokiji, Dover's expression did not change at all. Because Dover had known for a long time that Aokiji had a lot of connections with the dark world, and it was not surprising that he knew the identity of the dark middleman Joker. In the original Dressrosa, Aokiji even asked Smoker to bring a message to Akainu, Marshal Marine, in Punk Hazard, and asked him to send Admiral to Dressrosa. Advertisement. This shows that Aokiji has its own news channel in the dark world. Seeing that Dover was not surprised or flustered because he knew Joker, Aokiji frowned. The unmeasured man on the other side seemed to know everything, which made Aokiji feel extremely uncomfortable. Evil. The playful arc of Dover's mouth widened at this time. You think I represent evil, then Kuzan, who is it that represents justice in this world? Aokiji was shocked all over. However, he can't speak righteously. It is the government and Marine who represent justice. Because this belief has already been shaken by himself. Aokiji couldn't answer for a while. Who is it that represents justice? Isn't this question what Aokiji itself has always been puzzled about, and thus is always looking for? It seems you don't know either. Aokiji's speechlessness was as expected by Dover. Ha 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 ha. Dover Green laughed unusually. Kuzan, a man like you, would be trapped by such a stupid question. Justice. Things like that have always been opposites. Marine has the justice of the Marine, and the pirate has the justice of the pirate. Different positions are inherently destined, and justice is different. Dover's voice grew louder and louder, and there was even thunder in the void. But if you have to pick out the only guy who represents justice, then there is only winner. At the end of the sound, there was an indescribable grandiose hockey. From the arrogant figure standing above the night sky in the darkness. Like the sea of Wang Yang, it swept out and filled the world. In an instant, the desert island under Aokiji's feet shattered. Advertisement. The sea, which was suppressed and plunged into silence, roared again. Aokiji was stunned by the unprecedented strong haki. Even if it was him, he had never possessed such a domineering aura that seemed to destroy the world. At the same time, the sound that echoed in his ears, like thunder, also made Aokiji feel a shock that had never been seen before. Although, Aokiji has formed his own worldview a long time ago. But Dover's theory was never heard by Aokiji. Especially, the discourse on justice opened up a new world for Aokiji. Aokiji was silent for a long time. When everything stopped, Aokiji suddenly stared deeply at the unfathomable man opposite. Quote. Victor. In the past 800 years, this term has been represented by world government. Even if it was the former One Piece King D. Roger, he couldn't really help the government. Even if you master that woman, the chances of success are very slim. However, presumably you have already been enlightened. Doflamingo, Aokiji wanted to say something, but finally held back. He shook his head, rode on the bicycle Wang Jiaohao, but left straight away. Although Aokiji did not achieve his goal on this trip. But he got an answer that was 10,000 times more important than Nicole Robin's son of the devil. With just this answer, Aokiji can't tell whether it's right or wrong. Perhaps, as the heavenly Yaksha said, only the winner can define right and wrong and represent justice. But who is the final winner? As for Aokiji, what position he will hold in the end, only God knows. Dover watched Aokiji go away. Aokiji's last words are enough to show that a seed has taken root in the opponent's heart. Although the seed is small, in the future, it can play an inestimable role in the doomed war. Dover smiled deeply and turned back. Some final preparations, it's time to start. Chapter 99 Virgo on the attack, Nami on the voyage, Empress of Tsunere. Advertisement. That night, Dover is living in the kingdom of Osno. When he walked into Viola's bedroom, a small head stuck out behind him, and then a slim girl appeared. The girl was dressed in a strong black dress. Although she was not very old, she was still very rugged. A long sword was hung around her waist, and her delicate white jade hand was tightly pressed on the hilt. Looking at the man in the distance who hates men all the time, her aunt, and another stunning beauty, walked into the room, her eyes could not help revealing strong hatred and shame. Her arms trembled slightly. It seemed to draw out the sword, but he didn't dare. That man, although she hated her, but she was also afraid of her. Finally, the girl didn't have the courage to draw the sword. Her pink eyes were flushed, and she turned and ran away quickly. Came to a secret place in the Osno Palace and practiced the sword desperately with a Jongmo man who had a broken arm and a leg. This woman is Viola's niece, Dressrosa's original little princess, Rebecca. And Jongmo's disabled man is naturally Rebecca's father, Cyrus. When Cyrus was just sent to the Osno kingdom, he was still thinking about making Rebecca stronger, going to avenge the demon-like man and save Dressrosa. But unexpectedly, Viola saw his thoughts. Tell him about the status of Dressrosa and the man's increasingly terrifying strength. When Viola told him that the man couldn't even do the four emperors Kaido, Cyrus was completely desperate. He knew that with Rebecca's talent, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't be that opponent. He also didn't want his only daughter to be hurt again. However, Rebecca didn't think so. She practiced sword 677 skills day and night, and even her white tender and beautiful little hands had become cocoons. When Cyrus saw the daughter who had been looking for his Aunt Viola, he suddenly turned back, as if he was stimulated by something, and practiced the sword more frantically. My eyes were filled with distress, but I could only shake my head and sigh. The next day, Dover returned to Dressrosa. Several commands were given one after another. These orders involve all aspects. But the most important aspect is combat readiness. The amount included is an astronomical figure. The reason why Dressrosa can support it is due to the underground arms industry, dark world trade, and the tens of billions of pele that celestial dragons send every day. All the cadres of the Tangjihide family were excited and inexplicably excited. They knew that Young Master was finally about to perform a huge action. The days that all of them are looking forward to are not far away. However, although the underground of Dressrosa is turbulent, an astonishing undercurrent is flowing. However, on the surface, Dressrosa was calmer. People live and work in peace and contentment. The streets are becoming more and more prosperous. Even Dover and the members of the Donquixote family did not leave Dressrosa in the next year. Alabasta. Advertisement. Vivi, who is in a royal blue dress, with big sky blue eyes, and a cute porcelain doll, is sitting on the deck of a huge black and deep heavy battleship, dangling his green and white feet board. Vivi also has blue wavy and curly hair, casually draped on the fragrant shoulders, white and tender little hands resting on the snow-white chin, but there is a trace of unhappiness in his beautiful eyes, and he mutters. Mingming, when will you get better? She listened to something, and immediately hummed. Does it take at least a year? Oh, I really want to see Brother Dover soon. If at this time, there are others here, it will definitely feel extremely horrified and weird. Because there was no one beside the beautiful blue girl. There was no voice speaking to him at all. At the same moment. The coast of Alabasta, several heavily armed warships are ready to go. On the coast, countless people from Alabasta waved and cheered. Goodbye Master Virgo. Master Virgo must return soon, you are the patron saint of our Alabasta. Master Virgo is triumphant. The man who was sent off by everyone, who stood tall and solemn on the warship, but had a gentle face, was Virgo who had eaten Mara fruit and practiced for a month under the blessing of the system, thus greatly improving his strength. Since having a scene with Crocodile that day, Virgo has become Alabasta's hero. Moreover, when celestial dragons suddenly demanded to triple the gold in the sky, when this thunderbolt news came, Virgo intercepted it with one hand. This makes Virgo's fame and prestige even more so in Alabasta. At the same time, Virgo is not only deeply loved by the people of Alabasta, but also highly appreciated and trusted within Marine. The government not only appointed him as Alabasta's base chief, but also granted him the privilege of autonomous action. This time, Virgo did not report to the Marine headquarters, but was going to annihilate a big man who was famous in the whole world. His name is Golden Emperor, Tezzolo. As a capable person of golden fruit, Tezzolo is said to control 20% of Pele in the world, and even the world government dare not easily make enemies with it. Virgo thought of this person, but under his kind appearance, he sneered in his heart. Tezzolo, it's also time for you to double the things that belong to the young master and return them again. The golden fruit of Tezzolo actually belonged to the Donquixote family, but was snatched away by the former at an auction. Now, Wilgo, who has received Dover's order, wants to get him back with interest. It just so happened that Virgo also wanted to try Tezzolo, what level of his current strength has reached. Next moment, several majestic warships set sail and headed in front of the Golden City, of Tezzolo amidst the cheers of the people of Alabasta. East Blue. The original Arlong Paradise is now the secret residence of Don Jihid. Bellamy was looking at the letter in his hand with excitement and enthusiasm. He was so excited that he couldn't help trembling, his eyes seemed to have crossed an endless distance, and he saw the stalwart figure that made him stand up all his life, and he said simply as if he was worshipping. Master Doflamingo, I will not let you down. Not far away is Kokoja village, which also belongs to the power of Don Quixote. The succinctly renovated cabin, the orange cat-like girl, is no longer in the house. The sister of the orange girl, Nuauchigao, with her arms on the table, whispered. Advertisement. Nami, I really don't know where you went crazy again. I haven't come back for so long. It turned out that Bellamy did not dare to neglect because Dover mentioned and taught Nami more about navigation when he was leaving. He immediately spent a lot of money to purchase the most precious nautical chart in the world and sent it to Nami. However, Nami did not have the burden of the village, and his active temperament gradually recovered. He actually proposed to go out to sail in order to truly increase his sailing knowledge. Bellamy reported the matter to Dover to know. There is no reason for Dover to disobey, he even sent a few cadres in the family who had sword in strength to protect Nami. At this time, Nami no longer knows where to sail. Grand Line, Calm Belt. In a place called Amazon Lily Island, all the people on it are women. And the king of the daughter country, whom all female citizens admire, is the pirate empress Boa Hancock, who is known as the world's #1 beauty. However, the citizens of the daughter country did not know. In the harem of the female emperor who is extremely holy in their hearts and no one can be worthy of, they don't know when, they are actually filled with all the information of a certain man. Including photos, news in newspapers, previous reward orders issued by Marine, and even the half-word description of the man in the book. Now, in front of the empress's boudoir, the two sisters of the empress were calling outside the door. My sister, we have important matters to report to you. Then, Sandersonia and Marigold waited outside quietly. Since coming back last time, Hancock's boudoir, like her bathroom, has become a forbidden place that no one in the daughter country is allowed to enter. Even Hancock's two closest sisters are no good. Regarding this point, although Sandersonia and Marigold find it strange, they don't have the slightest opinion. After all, the elder sister looks like a fairy and is the most beautiful woman in the world, and any request is reasonable. After a long time, the door of the female emperor's boudoir opened. Hancock, who was as arrogant as before, walked out and said indifferently. What's bothering my concubine? Sandersonia and Marigold immediately became more respectful. They felt that the hockey in the sister's body seemed to be stronger than before, and the traces of the gestures made the two of them feel shocked. Such hockey, Sandersonia and Marigold have only been seen in a terrible man. Thinking of that terrible man, Sandersonia and Marigold couldn't help but glance at each other, and then secretly glanced at them, laying an arrogant sister, at the same time thinking. Sister-in-law is like this, she doesn't seem to fall in love with that man. Mother-in-law is really nonsense. Fortunately, she didn't go to Dressrosa. Thinking like this in their hearts, Sandersonia and Marigold hurriedly reported important matters to Hancock. What the two of them reported was indeed very important, but Hancock only nodded faintly after listening, and said coldly. My concubine knows. Then he walked into the boudoir again and closed the door. Sandersonia and Marigold couldn't help looking at each other, and each of them whispered. Sir sister should be cultivating, let's not disturb sister less. The other nodded quickly, but Sandersonia and Marigold didn't know. The moment Hancock turned and walked into the boudoir, on the flawless jade face, the indifference disappeared without a trace in an instant. Flush. Hancock was like a little girl, jumping onto the incense bed full of photos, looking at the man in the photo with beautiful eyes, and became stunned. Looking closely, the person in the photo is not Dover, but who is it? Chapter 100 The Movement of the Revolutionary Army, Ace and Whitebeard. Advertisement. Holy Land Mariajoy. By manipulating the Roswald family that was completely controlled, the blue pill had completely spread among the celestial dragons within a few months. Celestial dragons, the blue pill that can increase the lifespan, is eager for it. No matter how much Guy produces every day, it will be sold out in a very short period of time. And this also brought to Dressrosa astronomical, digital wealth. And this number is skyrocketing at an incredible speed every moment. But behind the skyrocketing wealth of Dover and celestial dragons' greed and violence, the corresponding nature is that the people are suffering more. Although, under the suppression of Marine led by Sengoku, the large-scale rebellion was quickly quelled, and the world maintained a superficial calm. But, in some parts of the sea, due to the prevention of some special forces, even the power of Marine is difficult to reach. In the four seas, there are such small countries. Because he could no longer stand the violent conquest of celestial dragons, he rose up to resist. In the beginning, these resistances were unorganized and orderly, and were almost suppressed by the country's royal family who feared the power of celestial dragons. However, just as the royal family was about to eliminate the rebel army, some people with weird costumes and strange slogans suddenly came to these countries. With the slogan of saving the world, they helped the rebelling people against the royal family. Even Marine, who came from the royal family for help, was driven away by those strange people. The leader of these weird people is a tall man with a green print on his face covered in a black coat. They are the world government, the revolutionary army that wants to get rid of all the time. The man with the green seal is the leader of the revolutionary army, Monkey, who is more threatening than the four emperors from the government's point of view. D-Dragon. This day, at the headquarters of the revolutionary army, a heavy meeting is going on. Around the table are the core members of the revolutionary army, including the leader Long, the four commanders of the army, and Sabo, who has been the second in command of the chief of the general staff at a young age, but has lost part of his memory. Dragon, we can't lurch anymore. If celestial dragons do this, the world will be destroyed sooner or later. An army commander patted the table angrily, his face full of anger. Although their revolutionary army has rescued several small countries, as long as the celestial dragons, the root of the disaster, are still a day away, the people they rescued will be only a fraction of a fraction, and the world's conditions will only get worse. At the anger of the army commander, the dragon, who folded his hands and looked silent and didn't know what he was thinking, did not speak. In his heart, he didn't know that what the commander of the army said was the truth. Since the revolutionary army is committed to saving the world, it is too late to choose silence at this moment. Advertisement. However, Long still has great concerns. Although the power of their revolutionary army is developing very fast, it is far from the huge world government. According to Long's original plan, the revolutionary army will have to wait at least 6 or 7 years before it is the best time to deal with the world government. But unexpectedly, celestial dragons suddenly went crazy. Countless ambitious pirates can't hold back. The situation of the world has changed rapidly. Faced with such a sudden situation, what should the revolutionary army do? Even the extremely calm and Rong G Monkey D Dragon can hardly choose for a while. Another point made Long even more faintly disturbed. He always feels. The world seemed to be moved by a pair of invisible hands hidden in the darkness. This led to the world becoming the terrible situation it is now. Who will it be? Long believes in how he feels. Someone must be manipulating the world in the dark. At this time, Sabo was a little stiff in the scene, and hurriedly smiled and said, "Don't be too anxious for several army commanders. The more critical we are, the more we should calm down." Long turned his head to look at Sabo, and nodded slightly in his heart. This child he once saved by accident has indeed great potential and a great head. Long has even trained him as the second-generation leader of the revolutionary army. Crow, tell me about your situation there. Long exposed the topic just now, and asked a man in a black feather coat. The man was the commander of the Northern Army, Careerist, code-named Crow. Although he is mainly stationed in the Northern Army, he has recently shouldered the important task of inquiring into the intelligence of various parties in the world. Careerist then revealed a few important and secret information. Among them, most of them involve Shichibukai and 4 emperors. Advertisement. After all, the world is in such a chaotic situation. It is impossible for the revolutionary army to do something without paying attention to the 2 powers of Shichibukai and 4 emperors, which are in power with Marine. For flowers. When Careerist talked about the last 4 emperors, Whitebeard, who is also known as the world's strongest, he mentioned a name that made Sabo, who was originally calm and composed, suddenly his face changed and his mind roared. Crow, the name you just said was Ace. New World. Ace went through hardships and obstacles. Finally, a few days ago, he reached the territory of the world's strongest man, 4 emperors Whitebeard. Ace first fought a battle with Jinbei, one of Shichibukai's seamen who was under Whitebeard. As a result, the 2 sides did not decide the outcome, but forged a lot of friendship. However, Ace's idea of defeating Whitebeard remained unchanged. Jinbei didn't stop him anymore. Instead, he folded his arms around his chest and looked at Ace jokingly, asking for trouble later. After all, Jinbei is quite aware that Ace's strength is almost the same as his. But compared with the old man Whitebeard, it is simply the gap between young children and mature people. The result was as expected by Jinbei. No matter how Ace sneaked and used various methods, Whitebeard was able to crack it with a wave of his hand. Ace made a mess, but still didn't want to give up. When he was struggling to get up, Whitebeard suddenly laughed boldly. "Goo la 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 la. Little devil, it's a shame that you are dead now. If there is not enough trouble, then bear my name as Whitebeard and continue to gallop on this sea." Ace shook his whole body, not knowing what Whitebeard was going to do. However, on the opposite side of the tall and mighty world's strongest man, JD stretched out his big hand to him, and what he said in the next moment hit Ace's heart violently. "Be my son, kid." News of Ace joining Whitebeard. It was in Dover's ears for the first time. When it was, Dover was in the Smile Factory on Sky Island. The corner of Dover's mouth showed a wicked smile that made Guy and Judge on the side feel frightened. For something like that, I have to hurry up, Guy. Although the voice was flat, Guy felt a deep chill. Guy bowed his body, his face was full of fascinating smiles, and said in sweat. Little one understands, Master Joker.